Thank you. Kia ora everyone, morena. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 16th of April 2026. I'll invite Councillor Imming to open us with karakia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Karakia tēmatanga. Whakatakatahau ki te uru, whakatakatahau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ane te atakura, he teo, he hoka, he hauhu, tihei Māori ora.
Thank you, Councillor. So welcome councillors, welcome to staff, welcome to, I was going to say members of the public, but I don't think we've got any today. But those who are live streaming, welcome. As you know, Council and Standing Committee meetings are live streamed on the Council's website and YouTube channel. And further information about live streaming protocols can be found on the Council's website. In case of emergency, please follow the building wardens to the nearest exit. The meeting point is across the road at Peace Park, behind here. And bathroom facilities are located opposite the chamber entrance foyer entrance. And we don't have everyone here from the public, so I don't even need to read that stuff. Do we have energy? Oh, we have an apology from Councillor Isles. Can I have a move and seconder to receive those apologies? Councillor Wilson moved, Councillor Boynton seconded. Those in favour say aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you everyone for that. And I'll note that Councillor Tu O'Brien is with us online, so welcome too. Do we have any acknowledgements or tributes today? Deputy Mayor Jukes.
Thank you. Yes, I would just like to formally acknowledge, so it's on the record, the amazing job our staff did during the cyclone. I spent a lot of time here at the EOC over the weekend, and I couldn't have done what I did without the amazing job and support that I had from the staff. So I just really wanted to make sure it was officially recorded. My thanks to everybody involved. It was a big job, and they did a fabulous job.
Thank you, Councillor, Deputy Mayor. And just actually on top of that, I'd like to acknowledge the role that you played, stepping up when I was unable and just representing us really, really well as a council.
Thank you.
Just following on from that, intentions, I agree with the Deputy Mayor. I think there was an amazing job done for what could have been really bad. And I know especially out our way and at a Hopi, there was stuff going down everywhere and it was quite traumatic. So not only for the folk that were in the control centre here, which is a real pressured situation, and we just got to acknowledge the work that everyone did there. But I had opportunity to be out there on the ground, and just our staff, they're out there chopping trees and doing all that sort of stuff. We just need to acknowledge those guys too. They're out there putting their best effort in and just do an amazing job for the locals. So yeah, big ups for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Boynton.
Just continuing on for the same thing, just to acknowledge also too the many volunteers who turned out and those councillors who were able to make it to evacuation centres to help there, and also just our wider services across the region. And also acknowledging Horizon. They had 11,000 outages, and as of yesterday they had 400 residents. So they've been working really, really, really hard. And they've had some barriers. Unfortunately, somebody took the copper from the one of their depots, which has delayed things further. But the amazing support from the communities themselves. The next day we saw neighbours helping people with their fences, clearing away, walking across the road with chainsaws to help whānau with trees that had fallen down. And I really acknowledge the council for going into a state of emergency earlier during the day, where it was safer for whānau to be able to be moved and evacuated. And I think the whole district as a whole and all of those involved did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor. Ngā mihi kua mihi e tautoko ana. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare today? There's no public participation, so we'll move now to the Functions. Oh, yeah. So, thank you. Moving to the confirmation of minutes of the Whakatane District Council Ordinary Council meeting held on Thursday, 5th of March, be confirmed as a true and correct record. Can I have a mover for that?
I'll move that.
Dennis, seconder. Councillor James, thank you. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you everyone for that. Move now to the standing and joint committee meetings and recommendations. Minutes to be received from standing committees. And I'll call for a move and seconder that the minutes from the following standing committee meetings be received. Projects and Services Committee of 19th of Feb. Finance, Performance and Risk Committee 26th of Feb. Can I have a move and seconder for those two? Councillor Emmink moves and Councillor Ranui will... Morgan Ranui, thank you. My apologies. Seconds. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you. Recommendations from Projects and Services. That the Council approve the temporary road closure for the event detailed below, event number 1 Te Wharewana or Awanuiarangi Graduation Hikoi. It's just that one. Are there any questions of clarification? In which case, could I call for a mover? Councillor Hamill, seconder, Councillor Dennis. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you everyone for that. And recommendation from Projects and Services that the... So the recommendation was that the Council agrees to remove the exemption of fees and charges at Murupara Resource Recovery Centre with the relevant fees to apply in accordance with Council's fees and charges schedule effective immediately. And it's being proposed that that be slightly amended to the Council approves the removal of the current fee trial for the Murupara Resource and Recovery Centre and effectively, immediately, relevant fees will be applied in accordance with the council fees and charges schedule, just because it makes it a bit clearer what we're actually doing. And so could I have a mover for that? Councillor Boynton, a seconder, Deputy Mayor Jukes. Is there any debate on that? So I'll put the motion. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you everyone for that. Excellent. Now we can move on to the reports. The first one is the alterations to the Waste Minimisation Action Plan report, and I'll invite Lisa, Eve and Elliot Fenton to the table to just briefly introduce the report and be here for questions of clarification. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Council. The purpose of this report is to bring forward and ask the Council to consult on the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. I want to highlight that this request to consult has come through the annual plan process. This suggestion of changing the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan came through the previous Solid Waste Manager when we reviewed the budgets of the annual plan last year in the lead up to our draft budget that we presented earlier this year. It was identified that the waste disposal levy that Council receives could be used to reduce the targeted rates associated with curbside collection of recycling. Specifically, the decision to consult and out of consultation will carry on into discussions of the final annual plan budget that we will present to you on the 25th of June for adoption, but Council is unable to do that. But we're unable to, lost my train of thought. We're unable to make the change specifically by ourselves, and we have to go out for consultation. And so, because it's not outlined in our Waste Management and Minimisation Plan. So today we're asking Council to make a decision on whether to consult or not on the Waste Management and Minimisation Plan to make that change specifically. I'll now hand over to Lisa just to discuss further on the need to consult and kind of what that entires within the Waste Minimisation Act. Cool. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Elliot. Good morning, Council. So just to remind you of a few things that we spoke about last time, the decision that we're asking you to make today is not necessarily about actually spending any of the waste levy on anything in particular, but it's about giving us the flexibility to do so if we want to. And as discussed when I was with you last time, because the Waste Minimisation Act requires that we go through the full community consultation process before we change our plan. We're going through that process now so that we can have the flexibility to make the decision later if that's what we decide to do. So what we're asking you to do today is to give us permission to go out to the community to consult on this very small change to the WMMP, which is about adding the option to use waste levy funds for curbside recycling services. The proposal at the moment is, if we go ahead with this, is to go out for consultation from the 27th of April for the required statutory month, and then we've got a hearings date booked, should we need it, for the 12th of June, and once that change has gone through, we'll be working in the background to come up with some actual plans about whether we use the levy, and if we do, how much, and that will come back to you through the annual plan process as well. So any questions on the statutory process, I can help you with that. Any questions on the annual plan process, that's what Elliot's here for.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions or clarifications?
Not quite sure how to word it, but just in paragraph 4.2 where you've got the proposal, so we're just talking in the first paragraph about the reducing associated target rates which currently fund the service. I mean, that sounds like a great idea to me. We don't have any idea or estimate yet, I guess, of what we could be saving by using the fund.
Correct. So we're looking at a number of different scenarios about if we were to subsidise the curbside recycling collection, how much might that be? We know how much the curbside recycling collection costs us every year.
Yeah.
We know how much we get in levy funds. We've discussed that previously. So I guess the decision that we'll need to make at some stage is, if we do subsidise, how much? And what does that mean for all of the other actions that we've got in our WMMP that we have already allocated waste levy funds to? Definitely a conversation for a future day.
Sorry if you might be in here. There was just so much reading this whole agenda, but I just wanted, so with the savings, would that also in a sense pay for the consultation itself? Is there an added cost for going out to consultation with the community compared to the savings that will be made?
It's a fair question. I don't know specifically the answer in terms of what the savings would be versus the cost of consultation, but I can provide that for you at a later date. The consultation dates are also to time with other consultations that are going out during the same time. So we've got the bylaws as well as there's potential to have the fees and charges as well for consultation. So hopefully all those would try and line up so that we can minimise the costs in terms of our consultations and any related hearings related to that.
Great, thank you.
No other questions? So, Councillor Dennis?
Sorry. So we're talking 1.5 million that's in the levy that we can use. So will that be spread out over reducing the curbside rate over 4 or 5 years or something like that, or would?
Thanks, Councillor Dennis. So the amount that you're referring to is what we're currently holding in reserves for the waste levy, and some of the considerations that we've been working through as a team is, do we dig into some of our reserves, which have been held for quite significant projects that are in the WMMP already.
Yeah.
Probably what's been more of a focus for us is looking at the amount of waste levy that is coming in each year and how much of that we might want to use on an ongoing basis. It's definitely considerations to be made about how much we might need to keep in reserves to contribute to those really significant projects. And probably worth mentioning that this has implications not just for us but also for other councils in the region, because a lot of these really big projects are not ones that we deliver alone. They're collaborative projects with other councils. So it's actually a really complicated process to think about what we're going to use potentially and where it might come from.
Sorry, we only got this on Monday and been out all day and every night this week. I've obviously a bit behind the eight ball. I thought that we were going to pot, as where you are under the financial analysis, the 1.5 plus 500,000 later this year that was going to go to offset or partly offset the curbside rate. So what you're saying is most of that will go to special projects, which I'm all for. But you do mention there somewhere to subsidise the next paragraph, curbside recycling, glass collection, etc. Council has an option to use a percentage of that to subsidise a curbside target rating. So that's still to be decided, is it?
Correct, that's yet to be decided. And when we're referring to using a percentage of our waste disposal levy funds, we're talking about the amount that comes in, gets paid to us quarterly by government. Ideally, we wouldn't go digging into our reserves.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I note that the curbside recycling glass collection costs about 1.3 million a year. So there's potentially, and that's likely to go up with fuel prices and things as well. Are we on fixed contracts for that, or will that fluctuate with fuel prices and things?
Thank you, Me Tajos. So it's a combination of the two. We have a fixed contract price for the collection, but obviously that cost goes up slightly depending on the number of customers that are on the route, and CPI increases, fuel increases, all of that's built into the contract. So we're able to forecast what those additional costs are. Yeah,
thank you. So, there's potentially real quite significant savings there. And as you've said, just to be clear, that we're consulting on giving ourselves the potential to use waste levy funding to help pay for the curbside. Yeah. Councillor Whisker, you had a question?
Thank you. I noticed on, I think it's page 45, it says only 14% of our general waste has been examined. Do you propose to actually do a lot more of that to see what percentage is going to general waste as opposed to people recycling?
Yes is the short answer. I guess the longer answer is something that I'd really like to talk through with all of you at the Waste 101 workshop that we've got coming up in a couple of weeks. With respect to the waste levy specifically, there's quite clear rules about how we can use it, and it's only to be used for waste diversion. So I'd really like to talk to you about some of the opportunities we might have for using the waste levy to increase our current diversion. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that's the end of our questions. I'll call for a mover and seconder for the resolutions that the Council receive the alteration to the Waste Management and Minimisation Action Plan report, and the Council approves the recommended option to consult on amendments to the timeframe and funding section of the continued existing services and procure new contracts as required in section 6.3.4, Collections and Services Table 7. Moved by Councillor Hamill. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Whittaker. Thank you very much. Any debate? In which case, those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move now, councillors, to the BOPLASS report. This is on page 65. And Paul will speak to it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and councillors. So the BOPLASS statement of intent is before you in draft format. It's a requirement that by the end of April, council provides feedback to the board in terms of any content in the statement of intent. What is listed in the appendixes are the various projects that BOPLASS are and can consider. as part of the feedback, we've suggested that they focus on, via the Chief Executive as a board member of BOPLASS, on a smaller number of projects and focus on those projects together with a suggestion that there is a review undertaken in terms of the form and function of BOPLASS as a shared services entity, given that's been in operation for quite some time and there is a significant amount of change in the sector, and to ensure that it is fit for purpose or could have other opportunities to actually deliver greater value to the region. So, take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Whittaker.
Thanks, Paul. I was just curious to know why, or if it's possible, to use BOPLASS for our water services to procure plant and equipment. I mean, you've got that set up. Why not use that as a tool to be able to procure at a more reasonable sort of rate?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and that's part of the reason for that second resolution being in place, is to the fact that there's changes to water service delivery and opportunities that might exist for BOPLASS that aren't currently considered in the statement of intent is something we'd like to look to identify. The answer is there's no reason why they can't, but it needs to be set up in the right form and function to be able to deliver that, which is exactly the purpose of that resolution, is to consider the fact that we are operating in a different environment.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Emmink.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Good morning, Paul and others. Just a couple of quick questions. So what does it cost us to belong to BOPLASS every year?
I might have to get back to you unless the Chief Executive knows. There's a couple of different...
Around $40,000 per year.
Okay, and our estimated return on investment?
Our estimated return on investment is around $220,000.
Okay, so
Sorry, hold it. Not return on investment. Our estimated savings per annum are around $220,000 for our council.
Okay, so that's quite a good investment for us.
Yeah.
And that would be useful to have in here in future reports, even though I know the recommendation today is to review the statement of intent and for the Chief Executive to discuss things on our behalf. My next question does go back to that what is the tipping point where BOPLASS might be dissolved? Like we're talking about its functionality when some of the changes coming in local government?
There isn't any talk about dissolving BOPLASS.
No, it would require a resolution of all the shareholding councils to actually do that. So there's no discussion. That's not... That won't occur through any of the local government
I thought when you said we're looking at the future of it...
No, it's purely in the sense of has it got the capacity to deliver more savings in the environment that we have now. So, yeah,
Okay, super.
That's what
Thank
that was.
you.
Yeah. And I suppose just for a little bit of additional clarity, we've got about 25 joint projects that Whakatane Council benefits from. BOPLASS has been going for about 17 years now. So we're well involved in it. This step is just, what are the next moves we could make that could make some big additional gains? Is there something out there that we haven't seen? So the board has just been looking and trying to narrow a long list down to sort of 3 or 4 key things, and that information is being fed back to the Mayoral Forum, who is also quite interested in shared services and what the next sort of gains might look like. So we're in a process to prepare a report that goes back to the Mayoral Forum that says these are probably worth investigating, but that will require some investment. But as we work through that process, that'll come back to council. So that's what the review is talking about.
Thank you.
Councillor Hamill.
Thank you very much for this, Paul. And apologies if I haven't read it thoroughly, but I just wanted to understand what the $1.5 million for. What are the assets of BOPLASS? We've got $1.5 million, but what does that comprise?
It's a very good question. I suspect a lot of it might be digital, but I'll need to confirm exactly. what that would be. I'd have to look through their accounts in a little bit more detail, but I can get back to you on that.
Just for interest, thank you.
Councillor Emmink?
Just perhaps ask the Chief Executive Paul a question, is that, but they only really have staff, don't they? So there's 2 to 3 staff?
Yeah, that's correct, but also there are maybe some digital assets, because one of the many projects that they work on, for example, is GIF photography work. So, things like that might be regarded as an asset that is then distributed or available to councils. Yeah, so I'm not sure, but yeah, I think having actually a look at that, because I don't know the answer to it either, be worthwhile.
Councillor James? Cool, thank you. Moved by Councillor James, do I have a seconder? Councillor Emmink. Any debate? I'll make a short contribution. I was just going to say that I really support this, these resolutions, and as the Chief Executive has said, the Mayoral Forum has been very interested in whether there are significant savings to be found for councils by doing more shared services, and BOPLASS has done some useful stuff and it has generated some very real savings, but has been kind of constrained in its thinking probably around what kind of things it looks at. So there's a real desire to look further and see whether there are broader savings to be made. And I guess there's different views. Some people think there are significant savings to be made, and some people think actually probably it's just rats and mice. So we'll see, but when we investigate, we'll find out, and if there are significant savings, good for us. No, kia ora. Any other contributions? In which case I'll move to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Paul. We'll move now to the draft user fees and charges schedule 2026-27, approval for consultation. And we've got Sarah and Sarah. Welcome to the table. Councillors, this report's on page 84, or starts page 84.
Thank you. Morena, everyone. So the purpose of today's paper is to bring to you the draft fee and charges schedule following our review. It is proposed to go out for consultation using the special consultative procedure. We would like to bring to Council's attention that the dates for the consultation have been pushed out by a week and are proposed to run from April 29th to May 29th. Please note that the consultation material, statement of proposal and FAQs have not yet gone through their design process. These are in the associated appendices, which are Appendix 3, 4 and 5. So key changes proposed include some new charges and some increased charges, and these were taken to you at a briefing on March 25th. The vast majority of fees have been inflated using the Burl adjustment rates between 2 and 3.1%, and these are specific to the local government sector. The review that was undertaken has been guided by the principles of our existing revenue and financing policy. We are also seeking from you today to formally adopt the dog control fees for the coming financial year. These have been adjusted for inflation with 2 exceptions. One is a reduced fee for working dogs, and this was to incentivise registration of these dogs. And the second is a new fee being introduced, which is for a seizure fee. This was also discussed at the briefing. Council is required to notify the public of its proposed dog fees in June, prior to the start of the new year, which commences in July. So I will now pass back to the Chair for any questions on the paper and its associated appendices.
Thank you for that introduction. Councillors, do we have any questions of clarification? Councillor Emmink.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm just looking at... good morning, ladies, first of all, thank you. On page 90 of our agenda, looking, and thank you for that table, because the table was a really good summary of what we discussed and the reasons why at our previous workshop. Just looking at the building one there, can you just remind me again, like the project information memoranda for standalone dwellings, are we talking tiny homes there or a small second dwelling?
I can answer that.
Oh.
Hi. Yeah, that is what we're referring to. So what was known as granny flats or tiny homes, technically they're minor residential units is the terminology that's come through, but that's exactly what that relates to, those fees.
Oh, and just a supplementary, so the PIM was, what was the deposit fee for a PIM beforehand?
So the deposit fee for a PIM is $500, well, that's what's proposed for the next year normally. For these minor residential dwellings, there are some additional requirements that the legislation requires when a PIM is applied for, and it includes receiving information at the end of the process, which for most PIMs we don't, because there's a building consent normally associated with it where we get that information. So that's the reason why there's a difference in fee.
And just a few more, if you don't mind.
No.
So every time there's a real estate transaction or there's an application for a tiny dwelling, I'm just kind of really conscious about, are we trying to make it easier for people to do things, or are we putting in place unintended consequence barrier?
No, I don't think we're putting in a barrier. The PIM is all that is required for minor residential units. There's no resource consent, there's no building consent required, but the legislation does require information to be provided to us to show how it complies still with the Building Code, Building Act and Building Code. And there are administrative costs associated with receiving that information, checking it and replying, and then filing that information. So the fee is intended, it's a deposit. So if it turns out it is much cheaper than that, there will be a refund. But it is to meet our revenue and financing requirements.
All right, and just the levy, the online levy, that is something separate that would be from the PIM?
It is all building consents and PIMs, anything where we have to record the information. It is recorded through a system called Objective Build now. It was Alpha 1. That is a system where everybody pays for us to be able to run that system. And that is the way building consents and the like are administered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hamill.
Thank you. I think it's also want to say thank you for providing some of those benchmarking across other councils, because I think that's really helpful for us to see where we sit. So on that table, page 87, the Wairoa and Gisborne, their fees and charges sit quite a lot lower. Would that be, as you described in the paragraph, because that they are not including their water-related charges in that? Do we know for those specific examples?
Through the chair, don't know specifically, but there is a lot of differences between how councils actually include. For example, we include the connection charges, but not the volumetric. Some include volumetric, some don't include any. So most likely, and I think as we work through the long-term plan, we'll actually get a better understanding of actually how we compare at a lower level of detail.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. In regard to the sports ground on page 61, I think I may have asked this last time, but I want to ask it again. Evers Park, you're going to increase their charge to $1,662.50. And at the top it says to cover lighting costs. Is that power usage? Or is that repairs and maintenance?
It's for the lighting, so the cost and the energy associated with that.
So the Te Tiko Resident Association pay the power bill, and I've got it here for you. They pay the power bill for all that, so it ranges from $257 a month or bi-monthly, and I think I've got one here for 312 for October, September. So why are we increasing their fee for them, please? Yeah, Nova Energy, September, October 25, they paid $312.78.
I can actually just go away and check and see what is happening there. I can go and check and see what is happening in terms of the billing, but my understanding was that we were paying part of that billing as well. So that was perhaps the portion that was being used by the lighting power. But I'll go away and check on that.
I thought they paid the whole power bill. But anyway, if you come back to me on that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Councillor Whittaker.
My question's along a similar line, and I'm just curious to know why Evers Park pays $1,400 a year and Dunderdale pays $941. Why is there such a difference?
What was the other one that you said, sorry? Evers Park?
Dunderdale Park, Te Teko. They're both in Te Teko. One pays $1,400, the other pays $941.
I don't know specifically, but I would anticipate it was to do
It
with...
seems like,
level of use.
can't quite get my head around that one. But if you could get back to me, that'd be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, thank you, too.
Kia ora tātou. Just might be able to help with that, Malcolm. We've got 2 fields on the Evers Park and only one in Dunderdale. I think we've raised this in the past, and that was the answer given. The amount of fields that we use out at Evers Park. I think we're having to lease 2 fields or pay rates on the 2 fields rather than just the one at Dunderdale.
I can just clarify that. I've just got information from Ian Maloney to say that the money that's been paid for the Te Teko lighting was to do with maintenance of the lights. And yeah, as Councillor O'Brien has said, it's the difference between 2 fields and 1 field, which is why the fees are different. Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you for that. Are there other questions? Councillor Hamill?
I have just a point that I'd perhaps leave with Hone and Lisa Eve on the skip bin charges at the War Memorial Hall. That's page 91. I just wonder if for our Waste 101 in future, could we have a kōrero about whether that's that the way of disposing our waste at our events is consistent with our WMP. Thank you.
Absolutely. We've got a briefing on the 29th of this month.
Thank you. Look forward to that. Other questions? I have a couple, and my apologies, I wasn't at the workshop, but the first one was around the working dogs, reducing the registration fee. Do we have any sense of how many unregistered working dogs there are?
No, I can't give you a precise number, but when it's described to me, the number is low in terms of registrations compared to other dogs that are registered. So I think the idea here is to try and change it up a bit, a bit of an initiative. It's not just the lowering of the fee, it's also about staff going out to our rural locations and trying to encourage people to come along, about Kiwi Aversion, SPCA and us, to try and sort of see if we can get more registered.
Yeah, that's great. That's very helpful, and I think a really good initiative. Thank you for that. The pool fee changes for kids and unemployed going from $350 to $360 seems barely worth the effort.
Yes, so that was the inflation charge for that, and so that can be removed.
I'm not saying remove it. I was just curious why it was such a small change. Whether,
If I could just jump in, the point that was made in the workshop was that if you don't include the inflationary adjustment now, then you get a bigger jump in the future. So we should be keeping pace with inflation as we go. So that was why there were some small adjustments which seemed irrational at the time, but when you actually think about the future, we get into that problem.
No, that's good. Thank you for that. That's helpful. And my last one was around, and I'm just using the table of the key changes, which is on page 89, but moving to, sorry, so on page 91, there's a section on parks and reserves, and it talks about different fee structure for low-risk events, medium-risk events, and high-risk events. And do we use a bond or something like that? Because it seemed, I was just curious about the approach of charging for the risk beforehand rather than actually charging for the impact through the use of a bond or something like that.
I will check because I'm not 100% sure on the bond. The event, in terms of the risk level, is the amount of staff time that gets invested into preparing the events.
Right.
What the scale of the event is, so it's more about the administrative cost of preparing for those events based on scale.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Thank you for that. But yeah, if you could just let me know afterwards about if there is a bond involved as well, because, yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I had. Any other final questions, anyone? Councillor Hamill.
Thank you, Minando. One on page 180, really one for Paul for our frequently answered questions. I think the comms are really good. Just in the light of our conversation about rates capping yesterday, we've got a statement. These changes don't mean your rates will decrease, but rebalancing our fees and charges now means that your rates won't need to increase as much in the future. Just with the environment, it's not quite accurate. I understand we need to keep things simple, and it's all quite sort of hypothetical where the rates capping's going, but does that capture exactly the environment that we're in?
You're absolutely right. It's a correct statement, but it's at a very high level. The higher user fees we have, the less rates requirement we have, but the amount is quite minimal in terms of the impact of this paper, in terms of what that rates will look like going forward. It's certainly like it's a correct statement, but it's it's certainly not implying that rates are going to come down to higher user fees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Emmink?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's kind of along the same lines about the communication and the consultation. Like with the comparison to the other councils on page 87, would we introduce during the consultation the idea that our recovery of fees and charges is actually quite low for the size of our population compared to others? I'm just trying to, no one likes anything going up, but if we can give some context to it and then appreciating that it's not actually going to offset the rates. I'm just trying to think, how are we going to communicate that?
Through the chair,
I was just going to say, I think you've just identified a bit of a communications thing. I mean, there's a principle and there's actually what's happening in this round of fees and charges. And in principle, it's trying to talk about actually when costs land, they've got to either be funded by rates or fees and charges, and you're trying to strike a balance. And in this particular round of fees and charges increases, it's predominantly inflation adjusted, so it's not making a huge difference to that. And I think what we'll do is we'll probably just go away and tidy up some of the language around the kind of principle and the actual practice and what's happening here.
Through the chair, if I could just add, I think the other thing that we can include in there is that what we're really looking to do through user fees, particularly in the long-term plan, is ensuring that we're charging for private benefit through a user fee as opposed to public benefit through rates, and that process will continue through the long-term plan.
Councillor O'Brien?
Yes, thank you. Just on page 91, cemeteries and crematoriums, self-backfill, $250. Can you clarify what that means?
I can clarify that. That is to do with when family whānau want to carry out the burial and place the earth on the casket and carry out that by themselves without the help of our team. What's been happening is there's a lot of remedial work that then needs to be done by our sexton in order to make the site, suitable for ongoing and maintenance in terms of mowing and whatnot. But it's just become it's an opportunity for families to do that, but it does come with a number of tidy ups and remedial works that have had an administrative cost that's applied to it.
Supplementary, just thank you for that, Alex. So that's, just to clarify, does that mean that if we backfill our own up in the cemetery, that $250 is reimbursed to the family? We're paying for that plot? We're paying for that interment?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
So, am I understanding that if we backfill, or if we bury our people, that $250 is reimbursed to the family? Is that what that means?
No, it's just that if the family chose to backfill the plot themselves, there would be a charge of $250 to cover the work that would go on to make the site available. We have quite a lot of damage that happens to our equipment. For example, the mats that are used to lower the casket are often left inside with the burial, so we have to recover, pay for more materials, and the equipment, machinery requires some additional maintenance. It's just to counter, it's not every situation, but it happens often enough that it is putting the drain onto resource.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, just, okay, I'm clear on that. So, people they won't walk away from when they're burying their people, even if it's in a public cemetery. So we're going to be charged $250 to do something that culturally we're going to do anyway. It's going to be hard to explain to our people that if you do what we do naturally, we're going to be charged $250 on top of interment fees.
I think it's being proposed as an option for the public to consult on, and when our managers go through the fees and charges, they look at where the costs are changing in terms of what we've got currently in our fees and charges, and that was one that was identified as something that does require.
All right, thank you for that, Alex. We'll get that back to our people. Nami.
Thank you. No further questions, it would seem. In which case, I'll seek a mover and seconder for the resolutions, which are that Council receives the draft user fees and charges 26-27 schedule. Note the user fees and charges 26-27 have been adjusted for inflation. Note that the new and increased charges were identified during the user fees and charges review. Approve option 1 for consultation that includes inflationary adjustments, new charges and increased charges as set out in section 4.4 of this report. Approves for consultation the draft user fees and charges as set out in Appendix 1 and 2. That Council approves for consultation the draft statement of proposal as set out in Appendix 3. That the Council adopts dog control and registration fees for the 26-27 financial year as outlined in section 4.3 of this report, and notes that public consultation is planned for 29th of April to the 29th of May. Can I have a mover, Councillor James, seconder, Deputy Mayor Jukes? Any debate? Councillor Emmink?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think I'd just like to pick up Councillor O'Brien's point. This will be quite a shock for families who do want to put the earth as their last final farewell on the caskets, and now to be asked to pay for it, that's a little bit of a head spin. Potentially they've never been aware that there's been remedial work that needs to be done, or replacement of linings, etc. So maybe we need to make that clear. But what sort of percentage of response with the consultation of people objecting to that might give council consideration for that to be waived, like, because we don't have any information about the actual cost and how many families, are we talking like an absorption of $5,000 or $50,000 per annum?
I don't have those numbers on hand. I can find out.
And what about in terms of the consultation? Because sometimes this is such a sensitive area, it would be difficult for people to give feedback on. So I'm just wondering how they might have that opportunity to do it. If, first of all, we've got to make them aware of it, which they're unaware of. I was unaware of it. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here.
I'll invite the Chief Executive to answer.
I actually think you've hit the nail on the head. This process is making people aware that the Parks team has a new cost. They're having to do remedial work generally when that activity occurs. Consultation process will bring up, I think, what yourself and Councillor O'Brien are thinking. So, you know, perhaps when we come back to the deliberations and the decision making, that's when we sort of explore actually what might be the options around that cost. But I think actually this process is about making people aware that there is a new cost that's on the communities team.
It's also a fee that other councils do charge as well for the same reason. So it's not necessarily a new issue just to us. It's something that's experienced, broadly across the country. But appreciate, it's a very tricky, sensitive subject to talk about in such a sort of a mechanical way. And appreciate that. It's just like the Chief Executive said, it's about realising the true cost of what goes on in these spaces.
Councillor James.
Yeah, just on the same topic, I was a little bit taken aback when I first read it, because I have partaken in at several funerals, and I've always sort of walked away thinking, oh, we've saved the council some money there. So it's been a learning curve for me too, but it is only out for consultation, so I'll be reserving my decision until we've had feedback. But I wonder whether there's another way we can do it.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Boynton.
Oh, kia ora koutou. Thank you for your mahi. And my contribution is really just a general statement, and it follows on from highlighting how we communicate the environment that our councils are in at the moment, so that our whānau have a wider understanding about why all of these sort of individual things are happening, particularly with the increases in charges, how that relates to inflation, but also to how council under reform and under constraints, harsher constraints than before, have to look at other ways in which they're able to continue providing services to our ratepayers and to our communities. But I do acknowledge too the shock that it would be, the emotional shock it would be in regards to that particular fee for, especially for Taringihana at the time that whānau are going through such an emotional time. But it's also an opportunity in which we can find ways to ensure we engage our whānau to make submissions and contribute to the consultation. And I just hope that with all the other things that are being consulted on at the same time, that we're clearly able to connect and communicate to them about each of these specific kaupapa. But mihi, kia ora.
Other contributions? I'll just make a small contribution then, which is just to say that I do support these going out for consultation. I think what we're doing is really important, actually, is trying to set the ground for a proper review of our rates and charges, because we do seem to have a disproportionately low level of income off our rates, therefore more costs are loading onto ratepayers. And given the context of rates capping, plus a demand from our community that we get on top of rates, one of the few tools we have is to actually sheet costs home to where they belong. So I'm looking forward to a kind of a fuller review of these in future, but I think this is in the right place, getting us level with inflation, looking at those charges and being in that process of getting us in the right place for that. Councillor Emmink asked, what does it take in terms of numbers for us to rethink? And I think it's up to us as councillors. We are the decision makers here. But also I think to me it's not just about numbers. Numbers are important as an indicator of feeling in the community, but of course we always hear from parts of the community, not other parts. But also I think the quality of the argument is also important. So even if it's quite small numbers, if we get a really cogent argument, then that may be just as persuasive as numbers. But I do think, at the end of the day, it does come back to us, and as Councillor James has said as well, we get to make the decision at the end of the day. I think it's true that people don't understand often the issues around cost recovery, and this thing with the burials is a really good example of people just think they're doing a thing and really have little appreciation of what it costs on the council side to provide even the ability for them to do things for themselves sometimes. So it is a bit of a learning curve for us all, and it's an ongoing thing. But at the end of the day, we're going out for consultation. We'll hear from the community. The community will make their views known, and then we'll reconsider that, and then we'll make our decisions accordingly. So, and lastly, thank you for the work. These are big pieces of work going through. This is very detailed, finicky work. You've got a lot of stuff to go through, and you're trying to keep balance and perspective and coherence across the whole series of things. So thank you for the work, because it is important, and I think it's probably quite challenging work to do. Councillor Whittaker.
Could I just have one question? I see where the meter reading has jumped from 51 to 75. Now that's just not inflation adjusted. So why the big jump?
Which page are you on, councillor? Not sure which.
Gosh, I can't remember.
We've got like 400 different fees.
165 or something like that.
I can't remember either.
I noted it last night, but
because if you can't quickly find it, happy to talk maybe in the break a bit more detail about the rationale behind that.
No, I can't find the page, but I just noted that was the jump from 51 to 75, and people just walk around with a device, lift it up, open it, punch in the number, away they go. So it's a lot more than inflation.
Yeah, grab us on the break, and we'll have a look at that one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, I can't find it. There's somewhere there somewhere.
All right. And I'll just remind, the standing rules does allow questions during the debate, but I really encourage councillors to ask questions during the period for questions and clarification, and leave the debate for debate, because otherwise we get ourselves confused as to where we are in the process. I think that's all of the contributions. And all those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for that work. I think we'll take a bit of a morning tea break now, just to give our brains a bit of a rest, and then we'll come back at 1:15. Cool.
Awesome. 1:15.
105.
Welcome back, everyone. We're now talking about the Floodwall Integration Program Concept Design Approval. This is starting page 184. And we have Vanessa and Ian at the table. Welcome. To just introduce the report and here to answer any questions. Over to you.
Kia ora, Your Honour and councillors. In addition, online we have the design team, so we've got Shara, Nicole and Nicole. So they've really been supporting us through this process and helping support with the designs as we've progressed. We have a report in front of you on pages 184 to pages 214. In addition, we've got quite significant appendices. So the appendices include all the public feedback that we've received through this process. In total, we've received over 260 individual pieces of feedback on this, so it's been really well received. We've received pre-engagement feedback, so that has been significantly through impacted parties, so like the Sports Fishing Club, Gibbles, the Iceman, residents at Quay Street. We also talked to the police and berth holders as well, so people that were impacted as part of that pre-engagement report and appendix. The second appendix there includes all the public feedback that we received through the process. And then the third attachment there is the feedback that we received online. So quite significant amount of feedback received. I'll just go to the purpose of the paper itself. So really we want to provide elected members the public feedback on the concept designs as tabled. We want to present an amended baseline. So what we've tried to do as part of this project is incorporate as much of the feedback we receive from the public into the baseline design of 7.5 million where possible. But there is obviously additional options for you to consider today, and we will run through that. So out of today, we really want to seek approval of the baseline concept design, and we want to seek direction on inclusion of any additional items. This will allow the project team to move into detailed design and consenting. So just within the feedback that we have received from the public, so on page 202 to 210, we've summarised that engagement feedback for you. As part of that 260 pieces of feedback, around 10 to 20% suggested that we do nothing and hand the money back to Canoa. And that was really as a result to try and minimise any rating impacts to the public. So there was some feedback specifically around do nothing, give the money back to Canoa. Around 5 to 10% suggested that we do the minimum, so that's spend the 7.5 million and really just do the minimum. The remaining 70 to 85% of people that we received feedback from suggested changes to the do minimum, and also some of them suggested that we include some additional items in and actually spend more. So some people said, if we're doing this now, we should spend some more money and do it right and do it now. So that was, so the larger portion of people were really pushing for incorporating additional changes into the 7.5 million, or doing some things over and above that. And again, we'll talk through that today. Section 4 of your report. So I'll just step through each of the areas that we sought feedback on. So section 4, if you go to page 189, that includes the eyesight surrounds, so the area around the eyesight. Really, we've been able to incorporate a lot of the feedback into the option here. A lot of it was around simplifying the ramp design from the town side, but also provide for seating on the wharf side. A lot of people saw this as being really a key area for the town. It'd be well utilised, so really suggesting that we spend a reasonable amount of the option funding into this. The option 2 that was presented to the community, really that's the one that we've landed on. And as part of that, we've confirmed that we can do that for the original kind of baseline design amounts. So simplified design, but really prepare and allow for seating at that wharf side. So that's what we've included in there. There is an additional option in under that to do a little bit more. So a little bit more on the, I will say, the walkways at the riverside. That was an additional 250k. We've not included that within the baseline concept design because suddenly we were maxing out our budget on that 7.5 million, but it is another additional option for you to consider. On the eyesight building itself, most people were really comfortable with doing the minimum, like just paint the building, take the decals off from the, which was there from the eyesight, but do the minimum and really leave the eyesight up to any future tenant who will occupy that building. So tidy up around the building, but for the building itself, paint it and do the minimum and leave it up to the tenant. So that was really the feedback on that one. So that's what we've put forward as part of the baseline for the eyesight itself. For the temporary park area, so this is at the corner of Quay Street and the Strand. So this is probably the more contentious area around what do we do there. Specifically around the fact that we noted that this would be a temporary park with the intent that council always had to do a commercial development there. So the feedback there was do the minimum, but also trying to incorporate grass as much as possible and natural components into that design as much as possible. And the other area, people were quite excited about using that as either a night market type area with some lighting and some bench seating, and also they saw an opportunity to do the light festival component there as well. So there was some people quite excited about that. Strong feedback about no ball games there, and that was taken on board and incorporated into the design. The other area that was posed as a question more than anything for that area was who is this for and what age category are we targeting for that temporary park? And the feedback was actually it should be targeted more for younger children. And also for the elderly. So as part of the design, we've incorporated some exercise equipment for the elderly, like you see in a lot of parks in Asia, and that's been incorporated into the baseline design as well. As far as optional requirements, there is some significant additional requirements there. So there was some strong feedback on the online submissions to retain the Plunkett building. That didn't come through as strongly in the face-to-face feedback that we received, but on the online submissions we got some stronger feedback on that. There's also some options there about doing some additional water features and some additional components there as well, which I'll talk through. For the wharf and surrounds, a lot of the individuals were suggesting that we really want seating at the riverside. That's well utilised, and again, there's not many areas where you can sit along that riverfront, so that was quite strongly supported, as well as increasing the kind of pathway and the access to the Awa. So again, we've incorporated that into the baseline design that's tabled in front of you today. And the optional components down there was some optional components. We have, also included within the baseline some container down at that's round about the Sports Fishing Club area. And that was, a lot of people were saying, we should have other food and beverage options down there. There was some concern about the loss of gibbles, and saying, hey, actually, if we had some containers, we could potentially actually do some food and beverage options or some retail options down there, but at quite a low cost. So we've incorporated that into the baseline design as well to take that feedback into account. In the wharf and surrounds, there is some additional options captured on page 199 to 200. So there was some ideas that suggested, although there was no ball games suggested around the area at the corner of the Strand and Quay Street, there was some suggestion that we could put some ball games and some play areas down at the edge of the Matatua Reserve, and that was to cater for some of the older children and younger children too. It was a specific feedback from the Hapu as well, because they were saying when, they have events at the marae, there's a lot of kids there, and actually that would be a great place for them to be able to play while, you know, the adults were at the marae. So I think that was quite strongly supported by the HAPU there and put forward as an option. In addition, we've put some additional options in there around moving the weigh station, having some additional decking to support a potential commercial development from the Sports Fishing Club, some bollards to restrict vehicle access. One of the areas that was discussed around there was it's a commercial wharf, but we shouldn't really be having any members of the public driving through that area, especially if you've got people on bikes and people walking there as well, and how do we actually increase the safety? So that's the kind of additional options there. We have, just on page 200 to 202 of your report, options analysis. So we had 3 options there. One is the baseline option, which is a 7.5 million option, which is a recommended option put forward by staff. The second option includes a list of additional items for you to consider today and provide us feedback on. And then the third option in there is the do minimum and actually hand money back. Again, do nothing is not really an option because regardless of what happens at the Sports Fishing Club, we will need to reinstate the car park as a landlord. So we will need to do some certain things, and we also have included in this the demolition of the buildings at the Quay Street and the Strand as well. Just within section 6, so the significant engagement item, that covers all of the feedback and summarises all the feedback received. We've included in the budget section, section 7.2, which is on page 211 of your report, the OPEX costs, for the ongoing OPEX costs. There is a correction to that. So Ian Maloney has done a further review of those OPEX costs and suggests it could actually come down to as low as $60,000 on an ongoing basis for the concept design, because we have moved quite a lot over to grass and tried to simplify it as much as possible. So that would be a reduction in OPEX from what's shown in the current report. We do have some risks identified there. So obviously any community opposition to demo of specific buildings, and specifically around the Plunkett building more than anything. But also the other kind of key risk is any delays or complexities with the Sports Fishing Club or BOPLASS portion of work, and that might impact our work as well. We have some next steps identified there. So following this meeting today and the direction we get from Council today, we'll be looking to do the demo of the Iceman and Gibbles in early May. We'll then do some Three Waters work around that area to allow for the Sports Fishing Club move. And then in parallel, we'll progress any design activities as a result of the feedback from today. And we'll give obviously ongoing updates through to projects and services on an ongoing basis. That was it for me as far as a summary of the report and the feedback, and I'm really happy to take questions, and then obviously there's a set of recommendations on page 184.
Questions, councillors?
I'll start the ball rolling. You mentioned that doing nothing is not an option. What would it look like if we did nothing? Would the regional council have to flatten out and regrass and do all that sort of stuff if we did nothing? And especially around the eyesight and further down. What would it look like if we did nothing?
The eyesight, they've finished their work, so it would remain exactly as it is for the regional council.
Yep.
For the sport around the commercial wharf, their obligations are only to make good any damage they do. So there'd be no integration at all, but they'd just have, I guess, rectify any of the pathways that needed to be, that they had damaged, but nothing above that. They're not allowed to use their budget for any kind of public amenity upgrades. They can just make good.
So they would fix up the footpath, they would just
If they damaged it, I guess.
put grass on the dirt bits.
If there was grass there before, they would. One of the issues around that site is with the Sports Fishing Club move, the Sports Fishing Club has to rectify the land only to how it was when they took occupation, which doesn't cover, recreating the car park there. So there's quite a bit of work that we need to do just to make sure that that area remains functional, and that's why the do minimal option isn't a zero sum, because there are things like that we actually just can't not do if we want those areas to remain functional for the community.
Okay, can I ask another one, please? When you go through there, you talk about works that have already been partially done and something like that, and I believe there's 500,000 here, 500, that comes to 2.240 million. Is that part of your 7.5 or is that on top of?
So that's on top of the 7.5. So that's a separate piece of work that's already been approved. The 7.5 is specifically for these three areas we're discussing today,
Okay.
which is around the eyesight at the corner of Quay Street and the Strand and at the Commercial Wharf.
Thank you. Councillor Hamill?
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one I did ask at our briefing a couple of weeks ago, but just wanted to clarify. We've obviously had a bit of support for the Plunkett building to be retained and some the other way. You've given us some, I think it's on page 196 of 190k. So that would be, I want to clarify whether there will be any additional costs for a fit out if we lease that out in the same way. Is it fit for purpose as it is, or would there need to be additional above and beyond that 190k?
There would need to be fit out costs, but you could pass those on to the tenant. The building is, I imagine a tenant would want to do some work to that building on the interior. It is tired, but we could make that a tenant cost. We haven't budgeted any internal works within the sums that we've given here for that option. If you do require the tenant to pay it, obviously that's then reflected in your rental amount. Your rental amounts are less if you're requiring the tenant to pay for fit out.
Thank you. And a supplementary, if I may, really one for Paul, or perhaps all of you. I just wondered if you could unpack on page 211, we've had a bit of comments from the community that this should come out of harbour funding. Could you just unpack that paragraph about what would the implications be?
I'd love to say you could do that, but I'll do that one. So as of 30th of June last year, there was 15.6 million in the harbour fund. That money was originally ring-fenced around harbour activities. I understand that's now been expanded through a legal opinion. So that money is ring-fenced and available. What I'm trying to say in that paragraph is effectively that money has reduced council's debt position because that money has come in and currently our debt position is lower because of that. Any withdrawal from that fund effectively increases our debt position back. So similar to a mortgage saver account, we owe money, that money has been reduced by effectively the harbour fund. We use that money, our debt goes back up. The big implication in this is that the other side of it is not rates. So our rates do not go back up. They move by the debt or the interest on the debt impact. So for every $1 million that comes out of the harbour fund, our debt goes up by that $1 million, approximately 50,000 of rate impact flows through because that's how much our debt's moved by. Does that help in terms of trying to explain that harbour fund? It's available, it's ring fenced, but at the moment it's reducing our debt. Our debt moves by the amount of any withdrawal from that fund. At the moment, that fund is approximately the income being received in it is approximately covering the cost of ports and harbour activity. So it's being maintained. We withdraw more, it goes down, debt goes up, interest goes up a little bit.
Councillor James.
Just while you're on the harbour fund, how much is in that fund at the moment? I know we're using the money, but how much is ring-fenced?
15.6 million was the number at 30th of June last year.
How much?
15.6 million.
Thank you.
Councillor Emmink.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Ian and Vanessa. Thank you for all the work and a very detailed process it's been. I'm just on page 203, and I'm just looking at the rating impact. And where it says the baseline option, if it was chosen, means we've got $2.1 million still from the LTP that could go to offset the rates at 0.18%. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then if we did absolutely nothing and return the funds to Kānoa, it'd be at 0.22%.
That's correct.
So maybe, Paul, just following on from what you were saying, for every million that we don't, every million that we borrow from the Harbour Fund to cross over to offset, we incur $50,000. If we didn't do that, we'd incur $50,000 more debt loan. Is that correct?
That's just the interest on that.
On the interest.
That money, yeah.
And so if we're looking at, so is all of the activity on the riverfront classed as CapEx, or is it broken into OpEx and CapEx?
I think in this case it's CapEx, yes. So it's.
And like 1%, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, 1% of our rates is about $6 million in CapEx?
1% of our rates is about 800,000.
On OpEx?
So our rates, 1% of rates is $800,000.
Oh, okay, I thought there was 1% of rates from an OpEx point of view was about 750, it might have gone up to 8. And then I thought when you move that across to CapEx, it was about $6 million of CapEx is 1%.
Well, 6 million of CapEx would, incur $300,000 of interest, which is 0.5% of interest, 0.5% of rates. Sorry.
Okay.
Right. Getting up towards that, so very approximate high-level numbers.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm
yeah.
just trying to get an idea of what the true cost might be on the rates.
Yeah, then to go into a little bit more detail, the number I normally use is around, so 5% for interest, 2 to 3% for depreciation, and it might be 1% of other OpEx costs. So you're approximately, for every $1 million of CapEx, 8% of that flows through into OpEx as a very approximate high-level number to work with. So, yeah, that just gives you an approximate indication of how much flows through.
Okay, just a supplementary. So I'm pretty sure that we agreed as a council to do demolition on the 1950s corner. So what the cost of that be?
So again, we don't have detailed costings, but the assumed cost is around 600,000 for the demolition alone, and then it would be another 100,000 to 200,000 for any reinstatement activities, just to make it, safe.
So potentially we could save 800,000 if we revoked the previous decision.
You could. One thing to consider with that is the buildings at the moment aren't in a state in which we could tenant them. So we would either need to board them up and just have them empty, which we have had some break-ins and some damage, particularly in the storm, where one of the sides of one of the buildings has come down and we had a lot of glass breakage. Or we'd need to come back to you to request a budget to bring those buildings up to a standard in which we could lease them out. So whilst we could save it with this project, we may be coming back to you for other funds, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And one more, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. So what are we receiving from the lease fees from those current tenants per annum? Oh, you might not be able to say that.
I think the question that you're asking is, what is the discount because of the development clauses that are in those leases? So if I could just remind councillors that there are a number of buildings that council has purchased over the years, and the intention of those purchases were to redevelop the sites. So what that means is that Vanessa hasn't been able to enter into long-term leases because the idea has been to develop the site. If you enter into a long-term lease, of course, you lose the ability to be able to do development because they'll want 9, 15-year leases. So to enter into short-term leases, whilst council is making its decisions around what to do with the site, there's a development clause, which means that if you did want to do a development, you could quickly move the tenant out, and that means that they get a discount of up to 50%.
Yes, our valuation advice was that we've had sits at around 50% if you have like a 3-month redevelopment clause. Obviously, the length of that redevelopment clause and how much notice the tenant has affects where that sits, but that's kind of a guideline.
Yeah, and since I've been on council, I know every year Vanessa has been putting up proposals to get demolition done to make it easier to promote the site as a development site and look for opportunities. Of course, the development market's not so good at the moment, but it will come right. And every year that has been turned down. So that's why a number of buildings around town have been sitting on short-term leases. Because we haven't wanted to lose the opportunity to do the development by ending up with a 9 or 15-year lease. And as Vanessa highlighted, one of the challenges you have with that is if you're not doing the demolition, you end up probably paying the same or more for all the maintenance costs. So we've recently had to do quite a lot of roof work at Wally Sutherland's site. Vanessa's just has been telling me this morning that the building on the Babinka corner got damaged during the recent storm. We've had break-ins down there as well because they're essentially empty at the moment in that sort of flux period. So yeah, just wanted to highlight there's a reason why short-term tenancies exist. It's about a 50% discount, and that if you don't do the demolition, then there's a high likelihood that you'd have to end up paying maintenance or improvement costs if you want to do the short-term tenancy. So it's just worth bearing all of that in mind.
Oh, super. Thank you very much for that summary and reminder. I think it was good to have that restated.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Jukes.
Thank you, Mayor Nundle. I am on page 199. Now, if I'm reading it correctly, and I think I am, you are saying that those additional 5 bullet points have been included in the baseline option?
Through you, Chair, yes, those 5 components, additional seating, moving the dinghy ramp, incorporating a simple bike rack, adding additional screening at the Nagle block and including containers have all been included into the baseline design.
Excellent. It's just that your wording says you've looked at how they could be included, not these have been included in baseline options. So it was a little bit vague with that wording. So my question then is, what's the cost of including just the containers as part of that baseline option?
So what I might do is I might just pass this one over to Shara. Shara is the one that has her finger on the concrete costing component. So through you, Your Honour, if...
Hi everybody. So there's, in terms of the baseline option, we've allowed for a cold shell set of containers, which is quite a cost-effective option. So it comes to about 11,000 per container, including contingencies, etc. So for a fit-out, there would be additional cost for a tenant to utilise those containers. Thank you.
If I can follow on from that. So what was the consultation from Hapu in regards to those containers being there and blocking the view shaft?
So through you, Chair, there wasn't a significant concern because it's a lot lower than what the current sports fishing club is now. So, and again, the detailed design of how high, is it 2 levels of these containers, we'll work through in detailed design, and certainly one of the components is We've got contingency or some funding in the design component for HAPU incorporation into the design and to do cultural design. And so the intent is as we go from concept design into detailed design, we'll work with them specifically on those areas. And they've even suggested incorporating some of their designers into the team to help with that.
Okay, cool, thank you. And then my last question was in regards to what was the cost of the exercise equipment in that?
So through you, Your Honour, I'll maybe just again pass to Shara, who I can see is looking quite studiously to the spreadsheet at the moment.
Obviously, I'm just looking for potential areas that we could save some money that might not necessarily be required to be there. That area could just be green space.
Just to note, if we reduce the baseline, that will have an impact on having to return that funds to Kānoa, because at the moment that baseline has been worked out as just match funding. So if we reduce the costs, then we could end up having to return money to Kānoa. But you could reallocate it to other areas if there are other things that you think could be prioritised.
I'm sure.
Or elect to return the funds.
So through you, Your Honour, we'll pass
I'm not
on.
looking to return any funds, but I just think that it's something that could be left out, because I don't know, we did have it down at the Rose Garden, we did have them down at the Rose Garden, but I don't know if they were ever well used or if they're still there or not, that's all.
Shara, are you able to comment on that? You are on mute.
I haven't got it in front of me right now. A couple more minutes, please. Thank you.
That's fine, you can do another question and just come back to me when you're ready. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. I've got Councillor Hamill, then Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Page 202. Can someone just comment a little bit further about the possible risks if we do the absolute minimum and return the funding to Kānoa? How much of a risk that puts us in for reputation with central government and potential funding opportunities? Is that, particularly after the boat harbour, is that something that we need to be quite mindful of?
Could we pass that to you, Steve?
The risks of returning the funding back to Kānoa? I think the biggest risk is just that we have this growing reputation with Kānoa that we're a council that can't deliver on projects when they allocate us funding. And it was quite a big ask to get the allocation from the Boat Harbour project, which was wound down, to get, it wasn't that project, it was the Te Aroha funding. So to get the funding transferred from there into this project was quite a big ask. We actually didn't think we were going to get any of it, to be honest. That was the signal. And we ended up getting half of the funding. So that was big. I've also had a meeting with Minister Jones. That was about a year ago as part of that process. And there were some undertakings made that actually we are a council that can deliver. It just needs to be investment into funds of a project that we actually can deliver on. And I did give my undertaking that this was a project that we could deliver on. So the biggest risk, I think, is just really around reputational. Of course, things do change over time as well, recognise that. But I think that's probably the biggest risk, and then the impact on our ability to be able to request funds from Kānoa in the future.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Mayor. In regard to some of the submissions, it says there 35% of them want us to straighten the path up to the eye centre. Is this part of the change that we've done on page 190 for the, instead of having a zigzag path up to the eye centre, we're going to do a dead straight path?
So through you, Your Honour, so that's a simple path from the town side leading up to the eye site, so that's now been incorporated into the baseline design.
To give more grass space. Okay, thank you. The other one, I've read it, but what are the containers for? So the containers for where we demolish the buildings and the containers are for?
So the containers could be for a variety of options, but generally it's used for food and beverage options, whether it's a
I
Gibbles
can't hear
type.
you, sorry.
So food and beverage option, like whether it's a Gibbles or whether we support the Iceman with the containers down at the wharf. But you could choose to actually tenant that with other food and beverage options or retail options. So again, it would be up to council to decide what you want to do and what process you want to do for renting those containers out.
So that's instead of food carts, you'd provide containers for people to use as food distributions?
Yeah, so through Your Honour, yeah, absolutely. Or retail, so it could be food and beverage or retail. But it just provides you some ability to provide some additional services in those areas that isn't the sports fishing club. So there's just some additional options. And I think a lot of the public really like the ability to have affordable kai down and sitting at the riverside. So I think this will allow for some provision for that.
Even though that upsets some of the cafes and the restaurants who say that people don't have the same overheads, and so they find them too hard for competition, because I noticed that in there quite a bit. Just one more. If we left the Plunket building there, and there's quite a few people are saying we should retain it, can you remember the percentage off the top of your head?
So through you, Your Honour. So out of the 260 pieces of feedback, the only percentages that we could get were from the online submissions, because the other stuff was verbal feedback that we received. So we received 60 pieces of online submission, and out of the 60 pieces of online submission, it was around 40% that was saying retain the Plunket building.
So if we were to keep it and spend the 190,000 doing it up, if you then let that eventually gave that to someone to build a building on that corner, would they be able to build it out and over the top of the Art Deco building? Because I know in some places they just put steel beams over the top and continue building, etc., etc.
So, through you, the design team did take a brief look at whether it's possible to build around the building, and it is possible to build around that building. Whether that's still attractive to a developer will depend on the market and who is out there, but it's certainly possible to retain the Plunket building and develop the site around it.
Or even just retain the facade.
So we have, through you, Your Honour, we did look at retaining the facade, but again, there'll be quite a significant cost of retaining the facade of that building.
It says 190,000.
Well, that 190,000 is to actually retain the building and do all the structural components on the walls that we are removing, the adjoining walls. So that's to retain the whole building, $190,000. There will be a cost for retaining the facade if we were to try and do that only, but we haven't actually costed that up in this option.
Thank you.
Can I just reconfirm that the 40% was only associated with the 60 respondents who provided online feedback? If I consider the other 200 pieces of feedback from the other direct feedback we received, the number was nowhere near as high as 40%. It was a lot lower, and actually a lot more of a mixed view of people saying get rid of it, of those other 200 pieces of feedback.
Thank you, Councillor Boynton.
I think Councillor Dennis may have asked the question I had. Mine really was just wanting to know that if we did the cost for the recreation area to demolish it, but also the cost of the keeping Plunket, would the Plunket building, would we get some return from that, from the developer, if a developer was to come along and purchase that site, with the amount of cost that we're putting in there, will we get some return?
We anticipate that the site would be more attractive to developers, and therefore you would get a higher price as a cleared site than with buildings on it, particularly given the deteriorating nature of the buildings and the loose asbestos that's in there now, and that becomes really expensive to demolish.
Councillor Emming.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm back on page 184, front page, And I'm looking at point 4 and the third and fourth bullet points. So the first question is about the program management and comms. Is within the budget, you're saying it costs 500,000, but only 40% of the work has been completed so far. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Honour, yeah, that's correct.
Your Honour. Oh, sorry. I said that out loud. So this is all the whole project management team and was it Insight, Ignite?
So this cost covers the kind of project management aspects, comms, kind of aspects that we've already covered off with, engaging with BOPLASS to date, on all the work that's been done on stages around Kakaroa Drive and the eyesight and Key Street. So it really covers a lot of that work that's already been done, and obviously there's more to be done. So it's project management and communications costs around those areas.
So we're not likely to go over that. If anything, we'll go under it.
Correct. So at the moment, the budget is set and we are tracking to that budget.
Okay. So the next question was about point 4. Can someone explain, we've got up the top there, they've only got 3.792 from Kanoa, but now all of a sudden we've got another 533. So how did we get that extra 500,000? And what is it for?
My memory is sketchy on it. Is your memory or knowledge of it better?
I believe it's the acceleration funding.
Yes, yeah. Do you know any more than that? Because that's all I know.
So we
It's
had
the acceleration fund.
we had my recollection of it, and I'm not 100%, but my recollection of it is that we received as part of the Te Araho program some acceleration funding from Kanoa that didn't require match funding.
Yeah.
And that we were able to have that also transferred over to this program, so that gives us an additional 533 there.
And I can just add some context. So there was a payment that was due as part of a previous contractual agreement with Kanoa, but one of the aspects required was a specific report to be provided to Kanoa. That's now been provided, and that allowed us to actually claim that additional 533k, and they agreed to actually allocate it to this project. That does not require match funding, as noted.
It was a bit of a windfall.
Okay, so they agreed that we could use it for this project, but we don't have to use it for this project.
I believe we do have to use it for this project because it was part of the broader Te Araho funding. So it was allocated from, the request was, once the report was furnished, was for it to be used as part of the program management or whatever it is, that acceleration type activities. Used to have a criteria. It was a popular fund in Kanoa, but it was for this project. Yeah. What you're suggesting is that we would have to go back to Kanoa and ask to use that in a different project, and then they would have to make a decision about whether or not they'd transfer those funds. The reason I said that the ask was a really difficult process to move this from Te Araho, any of the funding, into this floodwall integration is because Kanoa does not have a practice of transferring funds into other projects. You've got to end the project and return the funds. So we were very, very lucky to get the 3.7 transferred, and also I think they were very gracious in allowing us to transfer that acceleration funding into this project. I think if we were to go back and ask to use that for something else, it would be highly likely we would lose it, a bit like the Better Off funding. Yeah.
A follow-up to that? Thank you, and that actually wasn't where I was heading with that.
Okay.
Where I was heading was if the baseline recommendation was approved and we've got the 2.1 million parked for additional improvements at a later date, we could use the 533 just for this project, for additional improvements. So basically we've got 2.1 plus 533. So if we save the 2.1 off the deficit, for example, we would still at least have $500,000 for doing additional improvements if it was required.
we have to match fund the 3.792297.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I mean,
But
we
the
must be talking
533, I'm sorry, I just would probably describe the 533 as more of a savings in the 2.1 as opposed to an offset.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you. My question's a little bit on from the eyesight, and it's to do with the Waiwiri stream. Now, having been to a river meeting, I understand they're going to have to build up the walls that line that all the way back to the old com. Is that included in all this? It's not.
Through you, Your Worship. No, that the Waiwiri stream improvements is not included, so that's going to be led by Bear Plenty Regional Council. As part of that work, there is going to be some additional stormwater work done closer to where the com is. So that will be delivered under the Three Waters programme of work. It's not planned to be until next financial year, but there's no work for us as part of the Floodwall integration. We've completed all of the works that we have to do as part of the Key Street activities.
Do you know, do they have a rough estimate in the back of the envelope, sort of cost that might be to our council? Because I presume we'll pay for it.
We haven't agreed to contribute any funds to integration for that section. The only funds that we would anticipate would be for any upgrades to our assets, like the Three Waters work.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, councillors? I have a couple. Oh, go please.
Sorry, just to answer the question from earlier around how much the individual pieces of equipment were for the temporary park. So it's $18,000 each for the piece of equipment, and we've assumed 2 pieces of equipment in that area. So that was $36,000 that we've assumed for that.
Councillor Dennis?
In regard to the Art Deco building, instead of 190 to do it up, would it be easier, instead of putting containers in there for food sales, just to punch a hole in the back wall and do food sales out of the back of it? And then you could probably get 2 or 3 food sales there and save having your containers there and save the building at the same time.
In terms of are you talking about it putting a hole in the back of the Plunkett building? So the funding that we've put in as an additional option is actually just for, it's not any internal fit out or anything like that. It's not doing the building up. It's actually just the structural work on the exterior walls. Because of where they sit, you need to do engineering to strengthen them to enable them to stay upright when the remaining buildings are removed. So all we've budgeted for then is that work. I think you'd struggle to fit 2 tenancies in there. It is a really, really small building.
So you're saying that it'd be 190 to stabilise the building, but then it costs us more to fit it out?
Yes, if you could either pass those costs on to your tenant. I think there's some very basic exterior work included within that pricing, but any kind of fit out inside, you'd either pass on to the tenant, or if council wanted to fund that itself, we would have to come back to you for another budget.
Thank you. That leads on to a couple of questions I wanted to ask. The first one was around the Plunkett building, because it is, I've been inside and it's really small, it's tiny. And do you have a sense of what kind of income we've received off it in the past, and what the prospects are if we did retain it and leased it out? What kind of return might be feasible?
I can look up our latest valuation. If you give me a few seconds, I can give you that information. It is a really small building. Fit out costs, our team estimated it would cost about 80k for it. It is really small, and I don't anticipate that it would be anywhere near in demand, say, as the former eyesight building, where we've already had a lot of interest in that. I haven't received any interest in the Plunkett building. It is a really small, so it's quite a niche market, I guess, in terms of who could use that. It would be very much that kind of pop in, pop out kind of thing, like a ice cream bar or something like that. You would struggle to fit people kind of sitting in there. It's not to say that there couldn't be a really great use for it, but it would be a smaller market.
Yeah.
But I will look up what their valuation is, and I'll advise shortly.
Thank you for that. While you're doing that, I did have a question around, and this related to the old eyesight building, and there was a comment around we could fit it out or we could pass that on to the tenant, but it would reduce the rental income, of course. Do you have a sense of, just in terms of a business lens over return, is it generally better return to do the fit out and charge a higher rent, or pass it on and have the lower rent? How does that stack up?
We actually did get a valuation done that provides a bit of comparative, and my recollection is it was 36 for retail, with us not doing any fit out. If we did fit out on it to enable it to be used as a food and beverage operator, it was around 46. So that's about the difference that came through on that valuation.
And the cost to do the fit out, I think would be useful. Do you know off the top of your head?
Let me, one moment and I'll find that.
It was one of our additional options. We do have the information, it's just not right in front of us right now.
I imagine if you're turning it into, because you'd have to put in a commercial kitchen, that'll be quite costly. And then there's the whole thing needs a new toilets, and the whole thing needs a new do-over. So what was that?
Three-phase electricity as well.
Yeah. That's, I mean, I suppose we don't need to actually answer that right now, but I think in terms of going forward, if and when we come to a decision around how we actually want to manage that, I think we should take just a really hard-nosed commercial lens on it. Cool, thank you for that. My other question was, if we went along with option 2, which is the baseline design plus some enhancements, it's likely that we might not want all of those enhancements. And in fact, I mean, I would argue if we wanted to go that way, that we'd be really restrained in the enhancements that we chose. How would we do that? Is there a prioritisation, or if we wanted to do that, how would we work through which of these options we want to adopt?
So through you, Your Worship, you're talking about the eyesight and surrounds option 2?
Sorry, no, I'm looking at the whole thing, really. Because I'm looking at, 5.2, it's got option 2, baseline design plus enhancements, and it's got eyesight and surrounds, temporary park, wharf, all options in there, a few different options in each one. So I guess if we wanted to take a baseline plus some additions, what would be the process for doing that?
I think what the report is suggesting is that all of those is the $9.6 million. That was my read of it.
So through you, Your Worship. So really today's discussion is to seek feedback if you want any of these additional options as noted within 5.2 included, which will take you above and beyond the 7.5 million baseline design. So this is additional options you may consider to incorporate in, and then we can feed that into the design. At the moment, these additional options in 5.2 are not included in the baseline design. And really that's today's discussion as to whether you want us to consider any of these components. And if you do, you know, if you may want more information, and we can always come back on that.
Because I mean, there's been some conversation around containers, so clearly that's on people's minds. Yeah. So we'll just work it through.
And through you, Your Worship, just as far as the eyesight building and the fit out itself, so in the design that we went out to the public, it was somewhere between 50k and 250k, depending on how far you wanted to go with that fit out for, and that was assuming a food and beverage tenant, so that would include additional toilets in there, and additional fit outs on the inside, removing internal walls, disconnecting things, upgrading mechanical services, replacing electrical switchboards, adding in new toilets. I think one of the concerns on doing a fit out is until you go through an open RFP process, which is what the intent is, you don't know what the future use of the building would be. So doing a fit out now, maybe you may fit it out for the wrong reasons or for the wrong tenants, and then limit your abilities to have a really open RFP.
I was just really mindful of how when we got the Northland Holdings came to see us many years ago now, and they talked about the way they would fit out buildings for specific tenants, which would secure long-term prime leases, and so they kind of de-risked the investment that they made. So if we were to go down that road, I mean, I'd be wanting to do something like that.
And through you, Your Worship, you can always make that decision once you go through your open RFP decision making. You select a potential candidate for being a tenant there, and then there can be some commercial view as to how much you fit out and what rents are at that point in time.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Boynton, you had a...
My question was around, with the additional, on the same point, option 2, with the additional, the additions, that for things like the basketball court next to Mātātua Reserve and that, do we have other options, because there's other funders like Lions Foundation and that, in which the council would be able to secure that at maybe not necessarily as part of adding funding from this or from ratepayers?
So through you, Your Worship, we've not included an option for going out for additional funders as part of this. That could definitely be an option. I think one of the interesting pieces of feedback was when we were talking about seating along the front of the wharf, some people said, well, you could actually even do memorial seating and get people to sponsor the seating areas and have a plaque up. So we've not investigated additional funders for these additional options as yet.
I've got Councillor Emminck and then Councillor James.
Thank you. I'm just looking, back on that page 184 again, and I know that the Key Street $1 million that we had to pay through to Regional Council was, I'd say, quasi-negotiated, for curbing replacement, a little brick wall and bark. I mean, that seems a phenomenal amount of money for that. My question is going to, what is our contingency for this overall project? Because if it's going to be anything like that, it raises a lot of concern for me.
So through you, Your Worship, overall we've got 20.5% contingency allocated.
20.5, okay.
Correct.
Can I just add to that, in terms of those works that were done on stage 2B, it also included a bit of groundworks. We see that the path is quite a lot higher there, so that raising of the path, that's also part of that as well. It's not just the barking and the curbing.
Was that not part of reinstatement though?
No, they didn't have to raise the ground level, they only had to do it where it was. So we requested that it be higher.
Okay, it just still seems a lot of money.
Understood.
For less than a kilometre for bark and curbing.
And I do have the approximate figure for commercial sensitivity, but for that building at the moment it's around $9,000 kind of rent. But we would go out, we would need to get a new valuation because it would be in a different situation, and we'd want to get that set by valuation.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Yeah, if we're looking at option 2, which the only addition is the extra spending, and that we don't actually have to make a decision on any of that right now, because we could come back at a later date to do a lot of that spending, or do we need to be sort of incorporating that now in the build if it went ahead?
So through you, Your Worship, we're really seeking feedback on this today because it will allow us to move into detailed design and resource consenting. If we have to change the design at some point in the future and retrospectively go for additional detailed design and additional resource consent, there'll be a cost for doing that. So if we don't make a decision on that today, and that you can definitely do that, but there will be an additional cost. Some of the areas, so for example, the eyesight surrounds additional access way Riverside. If we do the design now based on the current access way, there'll be quite a significant impact on the design costs on that. Some of the areas are more discrete. So for example, the Plunkett building, if you make a decision on that at some point in the future, then yeah, we could probably accommodate for that. But I will say we will be looking to try and do any demolition of those buildings sooner rather than later, just because of the state of those buildings.
Councillor Emming.
Just going back to the contingency, kind of what seems to have happened in the past with projects is that the contingency gets maximised and then you come back to council for additional funding. So what assurance do we have that you're not trying to budget to what we've got versus being as efficient with the costings and project management as possible?
So through you, Your Worship. So what we've tried to do as part of this exercise is incorporate as much as we possibly can into that design and the baseline design for this to maximise it as much as possible. We have included appropriate contingencies. And that contingency has been broken out into technical contingency and programme contingency. So technical contingency for known risks, programme contingency for the stuff we don't know around. We feel that that's a reasonable amount, 20% for this type of work. So that's the kind of assurance that we can provide. And obviously we've got detailed QS reports against all of this. So the QS report is 208 pages long. It's very comprehensive. So really that gives us as much assurance as possible that the QS has really reviewed the costs against other similar types of projects in order to get as best cost we can. But we do know that there is some areas that there will be some risk around.
Thank you.
Councillor James.
Just again, what was that figure of contingency that you had in there?
20.5%.
20.5. So that includes inflation, which could be 4% this year.
Absolutely. So that includes 3% escalation costs. So there is components around that. So we've assumed 3% escalation costs, primarily because from today's date to the time that we plan to do this is only a 6-month period. So we assume 3% escalation.
Because just a comment, I'm like Councillor Immick, I'm staggered to think that they spent over $1 million on that landscaping, and I'd like to see a breakdown of the costs. I understand you have it, because I did ask at the Regional Council.
It was a lot higher when they first came to us. And we spent a bit of time in a very tense conversation getting it down. I'm not sure if it is appropriate for it to be in the public domain, but happy to share that with councillors where we landed.
I just wanted to add that it's not all the physical work, it's also, that includes component for engineering and design as well, so it wasn't all just their physical works.
And through you, Your Worship, as noted in the next steps, we will be providing ongoing reports back to Projects and Services Committee. So obviously we can break down the budget and track spend and provide quarterly updates through that process.
Councillor James.
Yeah, I don't want to get bogged down in all the additional spending and that here at this stage. I don't think it's the right place, but I just, the way station, shifting it to the Sports Fishing Club and that, who owns the present, is the present way station councils or is it fishing clubs?
I should know, but I don't. I will come back to you.
Thank you. I have two, I think probably last questions for me. I'm a little bit confused about the conversation around the containers. I can see in this option 2 on 5.2, it talks about 3 containers at the temporary park. I think I heard some conversation around containers at the wharf. So can we just clarify what we're talking about with these containers?
So through you, Your Worship. So for the temporary park area, we have not included any containers. We've assumed demoing the buildings and then really it's a green space. So that's what is assumed for the temporary park, but obviously there is that option to put some containers in there if you decide. For the commercial wharf and surrounds, so next to the Sports Fishing Club, we have assumed some containers to be included at that area. And again, that was a lot of people providing feedback around Gibbles and Iceman and saying, you know, how do we provide some services down in have included some containers down in that area, but not at the temporary park.
Thank you, that's helpful. And we had it clarified earlier that those won't affect the view shaft from the marae. Yeah.
So through you, Your Worship. Yeah, so that's correct. Again, as we work through the detailed design, whether we stack at the moment, you can see the pictures, it looks although one's on top of the other. We'll work through the detailed design with Hapu as part of that process.
Cool, thank you. And my other question was around, and I'll go to Councillor Boynton and Councillor Emming after. My other question was around, because I think I think I agree with Councillor James that we just need to move forward, we need to wrap this up and not worry too much about other things. But there's a potential, if we go with the recommended option, which is the baseline design, the comment came before, I think from Councillor Boynton, around potential for outside funding for some of those extra elements. We could presumably make a resolution that we approve the baseline design and we invite or request staff to go and look for outside funding for other elements that might be included in it. And in fact, that could be something that maybe Councillor Dennis's committee might be interested in having a look at. I'm saying if we went for option one, baseline design, and then asked staff to look for outside funding for further elements of it, that might be something your committee is interested in. Yeah. Cool. All right. So just two more.
Can I just add that? Happy with that, but I think we need to give clear guidance on things like retaining the Plunkett building, which is
right.
Which is in here because. We can't go out with a staff comeback funding options with something like that that's in there. We have to give a clear guidance on.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for that. I've got questions from Councillor Boynton and Councillor Emmett.
Okay, mine does feed straight into that. So what you're saying is that the 2.1 million that we have parked for additional, it's not parked because you want us to commit to it today, because if we go with the baseline option, you need to know about the enhancements from option two, like the Plunkett building, is that correct?
So through you, Your Worship. Yeah, so we are seeking direction on, out of that 2.1 million, as stated within section 5.2, if there's any of those components you want us to incorporate into the baseline design today.
Oh. Yes. So you would presumably choose which option you wanted, and then if there were components of option two, you need direction and feedback on that.
Absolutely, because this will allow us to move into detailed design and consenting processes.
It seems to me if we followed my earlier comment about choosing option one and then seeking of outside funding, I agree with Deputy Mayor that we need to be clear about which of those things we might be wanting to seek funding for, but also I would have thought that that's somewhat constrained by what realistic funding opportunities there are. If we found, like for example, I would think it's highly unlikely that there's funds to preserve the Plunkett building. If there were funds around, that's fine, but that's something I just couldn't, whereas I could see potentially funding for, a basketball court or we could seek public input into seating and things like that. So partly that request will be constrained by what's realistic. Following Deputy Mayor's comment on that, do we need to, if we did make that resolution, would we need to, for your purposes, be really clear to say that does not mean, for example, the Plunkett building, if that's what we decided?
So through you, Your Worship, it will just become quite complex as we're stepping into detailed design. and then there'll be some design components that we're just not sure whether we will be doing detailed design on or not. So I think we would need to time limit any resolution around this so that it doesn't impact the timeframes for detailed design and resource consenting. I think there is some areas potentially where you could quickly go out and seek through Sport Bay or Plenty or other areas to say, is there an opportunity, yes or no, and quickly come back. But it would need to be quite time frame bound to allow us to proceed.
So just seeking your assistance, how might we frame that up as a resolution to be able to respond to it quickly, not get in the way of the design that needs to be done, and allow that kind of some of that quick investigation? And there'll be elements of this which could be added in future, like if you were talking about, if you did want to put containers somewhere, they're pretty easy to move in and out, but there's the Plunkett building as an example that's a bigger piece of work. How might we frame that up if we were going to do that?
Through you, Your Worship, it will be quite complicated because a lot of these additional requests for funding are co-designed. So we would need to ring fence the 7.5 million for co-design, which is dollar for dollar matching Kanoa. And then we would then need to have a resolution that allows for some funding to be available for these potential options if there is additional funding there as well. So I think, yeah, we would need to provide some provision out of that 2.1 to allocate some of that 2.1 to allow for the opportunity for these things to happen if co-funding is available. And again, we would need to timeframe bound that, and it would be quite a short timeframe to allow us to proceed into detailed design.
Can we, asking our Chief Executive, could we approve option 1 and just take that as that's the given, invite staff to look for further funding opportunities, and if there were co-funding opportunities for a piece of this, shade structures as an example, then could come back to council to seek a further allocation of funding for those?
Sorry, before I download, what are you thinking?
One option could be that if there were a list of things you wanted to do, you could delegate authority to the Chief Executive to authorise co-funding was available.
I think what I heard in that was it's the recommended option is go. The additional 2.1 that is currently sitting in the LTP stays there, is banked and held, and that that we look at. I'm not quite sure how we look at co-funding opportunities for those other things. Like I'm not sure how quickly we could do that. Like look at co-funding options for that list. So I'm a little bit worried about how long that would take. And I sort of had in my head as well, you know, is there an opportunity to say, well, as part of the LTP, we review the 2.1 and between now and then delegate to the Chief Executive if there is a co-funding opportunity for any of those additional things that we include them in the program. But I'm also thinking what Ian and Vanessa have been saying is that some of those things really need to be, they're time pressured, and other things actually could probably be added in later. So, you know, the longer we leave it, things start coming off the list. Would that be right?
Through you, Your Worship, there might be areas of part of the baseline design. So I'm thinking about, for example, the centenary lighting at the temporary park, where Trust Horizon might actually support some of the funding there. For example, if it's part of a light up festival that can be used for those purposes. So if we limit it to just these components, what we could say is actually just seek opportunities for potential co-funding, and we could probably make some calls quite quickly to see if the appetite is there or not. And then if that was the case, we could then use some of that centenary, the money put aside for centenary lighting, and use it for another part of something else to fund some of these other areas. So I'm just thinking if we limit it to just these things, we then might limit the potential co-funding opportunities. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Dennis, you had a comment?
Look, in 3.3, and it's about this 2.1 and 3.1 you've been talking about, and I just want to clarify that, is that in 3.2 on page 185, it talks about the 7.6 million being made up of 1.6 that was approved in the 2023 annual plan and the 6 million that was approved in the long-term plan 24 to 34. So what we're saying is now that Canova have put in half of it, that extra 3.5 million of that 6 is sitting floating. If we do the sheer baseline and nothing else, it's actually 3.5 million sitting in there that's not required anymore. So is that 3.5 that you're saying that we could leave in there and maybe use to help co-fund some of the other stuff?
It's 2.1, isn't it? Not 3.5.
Yes, the remainder has been spent on those earlier stages.
Yeah, so it's 2.1 million, but yes, you're
because
correct.
we already spent some of it, yeah.
And just for a bit of context, because we were going through a number of annual plans and long-term plans, whilst we were trying to figure out what was required in the floodwall integration program, because the information about the floodwall heights going up and what it was going to do to the path, all that was very new. And we were also had the Te Araho program sitting there. We were building in annual plans and LTPs our reserve, assuming that we could get all of the Te Araho funding. So that's why the current funding in the LTP is sitting above what we got, because we only ended up getting half.
Yes.
So that, and the residual amount at the moment is about 2.1 million.
So we're now faced with an option that if you keep some, we could actually remove that and put it off the deficit or whatever, or we could actually reduce the rates. But we could actually reduce that 2.1 right down to $100,000 to co-fund something like the Plunkett building,
Yeah,
and then return the rest.
That's correct. The report was saying, it was recommending doing the baseline, so matched funding project, which is 3 point, whatever it is, what is it, 3.7 plus 3.7 or 3.8 plus 3.8, and that left 2.1 million, and was actually asking council, it would be good to get some guidance on, out of this list, would you like to use some of that 2.1, all of the 2.1, or none of the 2.1? And I think the option I said just earlier was you could actually save the 2.1 now, or around about that amount, or you could leave it and deal with it in the long-term plan, so it would be a next year saving.
Councillor Emmink?
Thank you. Or the 2.1 that we have in the LTP can be used to offset some of our loan deficit.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. You could do that, and we've got time to do it in this annual plan, or we could actually have that saving in next year's plan.
What would be the implication of doing one or the other?
I think that it would actually be useful to have that savings in next year rather than this year, because there'll be a whole bunch of additional costs that we're going to be faced with next year. So having a little bit of wiggle room with that 2.1 next year in next year's budget would be helpful if we were going to use the savings then, because currently our annual plan has already got a savings, well, we've cleared a number of costs that we had arrive, plus we've been able to take a bit, use some savings to take some off the operating deficit, plus we've set up a contingency, and we're currently having a look before we come back in June if we can find a little bit more savings. So our annual plan at the moment is not in too bad a shape.
So you could leave 1 million in there and take 1 million off the rates.
It's not 1 million off the rates, it's the interest component of 2.1 million.
Councillor Emmink?
So this is a little bit of a conundrum, because you're asking us to choose an option, but then you're making us make some decisions about future direction on the additional, I don't want to call them nice to haves, enhancements to round out the baseline option. Do we need to prioritise now those enhancements, and then whichever ones we choose, we just say to the project team, factor that into our $7.5 million. So we're trying, instead of spending the $7.5 million plus, let's just prioritise the enhancements from the overall designs, and you have to work within that.
So through you, Your Worship, that's exactly what we've done through the public engagement and the feedback we've received. We've incorporated as much as we can, and based on the priority feedback we've received both from yourself and the public, that's what's now in the updated design. So we've done that. We've done as much as we can for that 7.5 million. We're now saying there's some additions over and above that 7.5 million. Now, is there a choice to take some other things out of the 7.5 million baseline? Yeah, absolutely. And incorporate some of these things back in? There is, but we would need to come back to you with that decision. What we have tried to do our best on, based on the public feedback, is to incorporate as much as possible into that 7.5 million already. So we've already prioritised, based on the feedback we've received from yourself, to do as much as possible as part of that 7.5. So these are things we just can't cope with in the 7.5.
Deputy Mayor Jukes.
Thanks. I'm just saying, would it be possible maybe when we go into the debate to take each of these ones and just have a quick vote as to whether or not we are supporting that particular item? Because a lot of these could be wiped out immediately because they're not going to be supportive, and that would give staff as much direction as we possibly could. Not debate, because obviously there's a lot there, but we could just do a quick vote, and it may find that there's none there, and then this whole discussion's mute.
Cool, thank you for that suggestion. I'm thinking we should just move to the resolutions now.
Yeah.
And I think I had an indication from Councillor Whittaker to move the, and I'll go through, when we vote, I'll go through them. Should I go through them one by one? But the Councillor Whittaker's moved the option 1 baseline design, which is the recommended option, but it would include a resolution to invite staff to seek outside funding for. So Councillor Whittaker's moved that. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hamill, thank you. I'll go into debate now. Councillor Whittaker, do you want to, as the mover, you want to say anything? Councillor Hamill as the seconder, you want to say anything? Or you can say something later, you don't have to speak first.
No, just I'm comfortable with just moving forward with the project. I think the project team's done a really great job of collating, a range of community views, and we can quibble about the details for hours, but I think I'm comfortable with just moving on. And yeah, I agree with Deputy Mayor Jukes that it would be good to just get a little bit of a steer to make it a streamlined process for the project team about some of the particular projects that we might be able to get co-funding on. So I think that's a really good approach.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, my apologies. I've proceeded incorrectly. So I'll just I'll work our way through the motions, and then I'll take that as your contribution to when we get to the substantive motion around the options, if you like. So the first motion is that the council receive the Floodwall integration program. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. That the council approve the baseline concept designs for the Floodwall integration. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. That the council approve the budget allocation of 7.584549.8 for improvements to eyesights and surrounds, temporary park and wharf area and surrounds, funded through money from Kānoa and money from the LTP fund. Just wondering how this. Yep. Okay. Yep. Sorry. Shall I read that again? No. You okay with that? Yep. Any debate? Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Aye. Oh, against. You want that to be noted?
Yes, please.
Thank you. This is 3. Just Councillor Menck against? Yep. That the council note funds already allocated as followed for the wider program. Stage 1A, Kakahoroa Drive. Stage 2, Key Street, and program management, comms and engagement. An additional 533,000 allocated by Kānoa to this program. Any debate on that? Those in favour?
Aye.
Did I miss debate on the main resolution, did we? Did we just go through there?
I've actually got myself into a bit of a thing because I had I just got myself a bit confused. But I think if we on 4 and 5, I think might be an appropriate place to make a contribution. 4 and or 5. So,
what?
Sorry. You're okay because that was the baseline. That was the baseline.
Yeah.
It's number 6. That is the option
Right.
2 list.
Yeah, okay.
So if Gavin wanted to contribute on the baseline,
Yeah.
he's probably missed that.
Yeah.
He voted against the baseline.
Yeah.
But it's actually number 6, which is about the option 2 with that longer list.
Yeah,
And
all right.
spending the 2.1 and how we do that.
All right.
So I saw 6 was the one that would probably get amended.
Thank you. My apologies, councillors. So the suggestion is that resolution 6 might be the most appropriate place for debate on the substantive motion.
Mr Chair, I was wanting to make debate comments when I voted against, and I wasn't quite sure when that opportunity was coming.
Yeah. My apologies. Your vote against has been noted.
Because we haven't done number 4 yet,
Okay. We're just moving on to number 4. Okay, so if you want to make a contribution now on that, on number 3, we haven't voted on number 4 yet, so.
All right. Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, and I'm voting against the baseline option of the 7,500, appreciating that 50-50 from Kānoa and ourselves. My reasons are that we are in a real time of constraint. We already know rates capping was knocking on the door back in October when we talked about some of these future decisions. The environment has really changed. It's not knocking on the door now, it's actually really here. I don't think we need to fit out the eyesight or the demolition of the 1950s corner. Between those, that's like nearly $700,000, and I think that can just go straight back into our coffers, even though I know we already made a decision on the demolition. I've got concerns that we're not going to be able to keep to the budget, appreciating that it's never going to get any cheaper, and handing back the Kānoa money, we'll never probably get it again and we'll lose confidence. But I just feel like that even though we have the money in the long-term plan, we're going to need that money in the long-term plan, because just things like the fuel costs and all the other costs are continuing to arise. The way it looks at the moment along the riverfront, if you had someone that arrived today to have a look at it, they would be wandering along there thinking, what a beautiful riverfront. And I know that aside from accessibility options, which I would be in favour on, I just really think we need to be much more constrained with what we're doing. We've got some other funds that are coming potentially, hopefully within this financial year, from our airport losses, and perhaps the boat harbour funds are being returned. We can then make some of those decisions about what to do with that money once we know what our position is at the end of the financial year. So while I'm not normally a negative Nancy, I just actually feel like we'd be lucky to be able to keep within our contingency, and I'm just really worried about that from the future point of view. We haven't done any proactive consideration for that 1950s temporary park area. We've got another site just around the corner that has been for sale for about 5 years. It hasn't attracted any developers. That's a private site. Our site, we've known about this for about 3 to 4 years, and I don't feel like we've done enough to try and recruit a developer to come and see that. We had something presented a few years ago by Betsy Stevens that did this beautiful job, paid for architectural design. We just said thank you very much. We didn't follow up and done anything with that. So I just feel like at this time we just need to tighten the belts and show that constraint on for our ratepayers, because we know more costs are coming, and this is an area where we can actually save $3.1 million, being the $2.1 million from the LTP plus an additional $1 million if we just handed back the Kanoa funding. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis, then Councillor.
I completely understand Councillor Amick's viewpoint, and the difference would be that the 2.1, if we returned that and take it off the deficit or reduced rates with it, it would mean that we'd have spent 700,000 and on top of what we've already spent, but we would have attracted Kanoa money. I believe we should go ahead with just the base line and nothing else. I believe that the contingency fund, if we manage our contractors properly, there would be 190,000 out of that we could do up the old Plunkett building when we came to it, or we could leave it as and do it up another day when we get some of that other money back. But I think we should retain that. But I think, as Councillor Amick has said, that times are really hard, and our council have done an amazing job to try and cut costs down this year and take 1% off the deficit and have a 0.7% as a backup plan. But I think we need to take as much opportunity to either drop the deficit or drop the rates. And I just think that we'll do the basics and spend the basic money and then leave the rest alone. And it's not recognising the times that we're in if we don't. And so my view is just the basics. And if we've got some contingency left over, do the Plunkett building, or otherwise wait till we get the airport money back and do the Plunkett building then. But just work around it. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to tautoko Leslie's pārai and whakaaro. Given what Lawrence said yesterday at our meeting, and things coming up being really, really tight, and I just agree with Leslie. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Whittaker and then Councillor Boynton.
Thank you. I have two minds about going ahead with this project because of rates, etc. But I did have a good look at the LTP and saw that it was spread over 10 years, that we would be funding that 2.1 million, which is quite a small amount of the rates per year. So I'm still in two minds about it, because I don't really want to go down the track of any further funding into this project.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Boynton.
Kia ora. Yes, I'd also like to acknowledge what Leslie, Councillor Amick has said. I think coming into this week was that same position, where I really didn't want to see us going out, putting all this money into something while we're also telling everybody about fees increases and we need it because we got rates keeping coming and then we're going to have, all of this thing going on. But I am comfortable with the possible amendment that looks at us, those additional things that we basically say yes or no to them if we can get extra funding for them. And then it also shows that if we then use the other part of the money to be able to look at paying down debt, then we're being, we're balancing that savings part of what we want to do, as well as fulfilling a project and not losing our reputation and ability to access further funding from Kanoa for other projects. So for me, I've been able to reconcile that and I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Other contributions? Councillor James?
Yeah, I'm quite comfortable with the spending the Kanoa money and doing option 1. I think the 2.1 mil, I would like to hold on to that, and if we do get paid out for the airport or once the boat harbour, we can re-look at it then, but I don't think we need to be looking at it today.
Thank you. I'll make a contribution as well. I'll just say that I do support this proposal, and I agree with many of the things that have been said already. I don't think that giving the money back to Kanoa is the right approach. The savings that we make, so we're looking at saving that 2.1, and that's going to be banked for the long-term plan. I think any additional savings to be made, given the amount of money that we would have to give back, are so minimal that it's just not worth the foregone opportunity. So I do agree with this resolution. The other thing I'd say is that, as this Chief Executive has pointed out, the reputational risk of not delivering this are really significant. We are going to be seeking Crown support for various projects in the future, and if we have a reputation that we can't deliver projects, we've got no show. So we have to be able to deliver something, show that we can deliver. The cost to us is pretty small given the benefits that it's going to have. So to me, I absolutely think we should go forward. I will be. We are adding another resolution to look for opportunities for outside funding, but I totally agree that this baseline is the one to go. We bank the savings that we've made. If there are opportunities for other opportunities, yes, let's explore those. I heard talk about memorial seats. I thought that was a nice idea as a way of getting a bit more amenity in there. For me personally, if there was funding available from outside for a basketball court, that's something I'd support. And the reason why is because there's actually quite a lot of stuff for little kids, but there's very little for teenagers in this district. And so, we face a problem that our young people move away because there's nothing here for them. So I think we have to do more for teens than young people. So I think if that's something we can find funding for, that would be great. Shade cloth is something that I'd support because we have a lot of open spaces where there's no shade and they're just basically unusable in real terms. So shade is always important. And as far as the Plunkett building goes, it's a lovely, quirky building and I really like it, but it's tiny. The opportunities of doing something in there are very limited, and I'm just not sure that putting the money into that would be worth doing, actually. So sadly to say. That's me. Thank you. So if there's no more contributions, I'm going to ask, because of the way I proceeded through the resolutions, I think I did it in an unhelpful manner, and it may be that, and Leslie picked up the right where to vote, and that was, well done. With the leave of the councillors, I'm going to re-put the vote to allow everyone a clear choice of what they're voting for on this? If councillors are happy with that, so I'm talking about Resolution 3, that the council approve the budget allocation from the LTP 24 to 34. So I'm just going to re-put that vote just to make sure everyone gets a fair chance to state their position on that. So those in favour say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say no. No. It's 2 against. And you both want your votes recorded? Cool. Thank you. Again, my apologies for how we move forward procedurally. So now we'll move to the Resolution 4, that the council note funds already allocated as followed for the wider programme. Stage 1, Kakahora Drive. Stage 2, Key Street. Programme Management, Comms and Engagement. An additional $533,000 allocated by Kānoa to this programme. Is there any debate on that? Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Did you have a point of order, Councillor Boynton? Sorry? Going too fast?
So what you're saying is in recommendation 4, that as well as doing the basic, you now added in another $2.5 million. 3.1. So that's the money that's already in our LP long-term plan that we talked about, either putting off the deficit or the rates. We've just all agreed to spend that.
No, we've just noted that funds have been allocated in the LTP.
Already been spent, councillor, so we're noting it.
Okay. Yep.
My apologies, and I'll just slow it down and give a chance to make sure everyone's clear.
Well, I did have a comment, Your Worship.
Sorry? Okay.
I did have a comment, but it was just about saying thank you very much to the team for being able to get that $533,000 allocated to this project, and I would like that to be used first ahead of any other funds that we've got in the LTP.
Please.
Noted. So would we. We're just going through a process of understanding actually how that can be appropriated. I've been updated that there is still some dispute around whether that has already been spent as part of the broader Te Araho program, which stretches back, I think, about 5 years. And finance are just working through whether or not there have already been allocations against that. But yes, if there is anything left, absolutely.
So does that mean that we're noting that has already been spent? So if it hasn't already been spent, then there is no permission to go and spend it?
We're noting that we have been able to receive an additional $533,000 from Kānoa, which was allocation funding that we hadn't received under the original Te Araho program. So we're just noting that we've received it, and we are working through whether or not there is any residual from that 533, or if it has already been spent over the last 5 years of the program. So it's just noting that it has come in.
But we've just voted $7.5 million to be spent on a basic design. So if that hasn't been spent, that extra, but it's Kānoa money, isn't it? But you're saying 500,000, but that all totals up to 2.2 million. So does that mean then that if that hasn't already been spent, because there's obviously doubt whether it has or it hasn't, then of that, if it hasn't been spent, then what you're now asking us to do is approve that extra 2 million expenditure plus the 500,000 Kānoa?
No. Are we just talking about the 533,000 from Kānoa?
Well, no, we're talking about recommendation 4.
All of it.
Which talks.
They're all slightly different things to note. So maybe for clarification, can I get one of you that knows the details of 1 through to 3 to talk through them?
Well, with such confusion, I'm not going to vote for recommendation 4 because we don't know what we're voting on and everyone's confused about it. So can we put that off? and say no.
Well, if I could, and I'll invite you to make a comment if you would like, but just to say that all we are voting for in that resolution, all we're doing is noting that funds have been allocated. We're not making a decision to allocate funds. We're not making a decision to spend any money. We're simply noting funds that have already been allocated.
Can I just say that...
But if we're noting that they've been allocated but haven't been spent yet, we're agreeing to them being spent. So that's 2.5 million over and above the 7.5 million.
Councillor...
Can I just say, is it coincidentally that it just happens to be 2.1 million? It's not the 2.1 million for enhancements. It just happens to be 2.1 million, which is where there may be that confusion coming in.
So through
It's
you, Your
not
Worship,
the 2.1 for enhancements.
this is funding that has already been allocated and largely already spent. So if we step through 1A is already spent, stage 2B, A and B is already spent. A portion of the programme management and comm stuff, 40% has already been spent. The 533k, the question around where that's allocated to is whether you allocate it to just whether it's allocated to spent funds, you know, or future funds.
I just say, I think the confusion, forgiven, might be the fact that it just happens to also be 2.1 million.
Absolutely.
No, it's not. No, it's not. The confusion was when Chief Executive said no one knows whether it's been spent or not. That's where the confusion was.
Well, can I just highlight, for clarity, that it has been a very long process that we've been going through with Kānoa to receive the acceleration funding, and this has recently been allocated to us, and now Finance has got it, and they're working through, actually, has it already been spent or is there something left? So we just have some uncertainty. What we're asking Council to note, because we're all about transparency, is that we have got the acceleration fund has come in.
Does that satisfy you, Councillor? Thank you. Did we vote on that? Okay, thank you, everyone. So now moving to Resolution 5, that the Council directs staff to procure detailed design, consenting and physical works activities in accordance with the relevant Whakatane District Council procurement processes. Is there any debate on that? Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed? We want that to be recorded? Noted. Any other votes against? Okay, that's passed. Thank you, everyone. Perhaps this would be an appropriate place to add in the resolution we discussed, which is to the council direct staff to seek outside funding opportunities to enhance the proposal. Does that sound a reasonable resolution?
I think we need to give clear guidance on what those ones are, because there's a lot of opinions on the Plunket building, and we need to give clear direction, rather than a global, them seek external funding, because not everything in that list I agree with. It should have been a recommendation.
Chief Executive?
I did quite like the Deputy Mayor's earlier suggestion of maybe actually, if there's more than 6 votes for any one of these things, then they go onto a list, and if there aren't, then actually we park the list.
So
We've got to give some guidance to
How-
staff.
Because we want guidance.
I need it.
how about this? If that's the resolution, in the debating section, which is now, we can just go around and people can indicate what things they support. If they strongly don't support something, they can indicate that, and that will give at least some prioritisation list for staff to work with.
As clear as
So we're going to page 201 then, and you'll take us through that, Mr Chair.
Yeah. And I'd also say that this is all tempered by what's actually feasible, because we can give whatever priorities we like, but if there's no funding for a certain thing, there's no funding. And so there's, even if it's our priority number 1, there's no point staff spending too much time on it beyond maybe a cursory initial investigation. So the things in option 2 which have been put forward are additional accessway, riverside for the eyesight and surrounds, additional seating at townside, additional car parking.
I thought you were going to go through one each.
Oh, sorry, I'll go, yeah, I was just reading through what that list was, just to remind people, but you can refer to it in your own papers if you've, I'm happy to not go through it if people don't want me to. One by, you mean councillors?
Just a,
Yep,
just
all
a
right,
quick
cool.
indication of if we support it.
All right, and if you've got anything further to say, now's the time as well. So I'll start with you, Deputy Mayor Jukes.
Oh, sorry, isn't it easier just to go line by line rather than just do a quick...
Oh, I see, all right, okay. All right, yeah, okay. Thank you for the...
do eventually, don't they, Mr Mayor?
We're wearing him down.
Thank you for the helpful suggestions, everyone. All right, so starting with the eyesight and surrounds. The first one is additional accessway Riverside at 250,000.
So we're
indication...
support, hand up for support.
Hand up for support. Okay. Eyesight building area, additional seating at townside, 120,000.
This is for seeking other funding.
This is our prioritisation. If we seek other funding, this is our prioritisation.
Which one was the seat that you can get memorial ones for?
So through you, Your Worship, we've already included costs for the seating at the Riverside.
Oh, okay.
I suppose there's an opportunity to potentially reduce that cost slightly by getting memorial ones. This one here is about having additional seating down at the kind of more at the roadside at Key Street.
Okay.
You know where the bus stop was. So it's additional seating along that area. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was the memorial seats. Okay, thanks. No.
Thank you. Eyesight building area, additional car parking at 5,000. Temporary park area, retaining Plunkett building at 190,000.
Are we allowed to make a comment as we go through? Or is it more just if we support that?
Just getting a feel at the moment. We're keeping a tally of the numbers, and maybe we'll go through the ones where there was more than one vote initially.
Temporary park water play area at 720,000. Temporary park shade structure at 60,000. I'll put my hand up for that. Temporary park containers, 3 off at 25,500. Then moving to the wharf area, basketball court next to Mātātua Reserve at 95,000.
Can I make a comment on that? I just haven't been sure when we're... So my general principle
We're
is...
kind of making up as we go along.
Yeah. My general principle is that I think some of our extra spending should have quite a strong function, which I think this basketball court would do, and it's obviously been requested by Hapu or suggested. And I also have been involved with a community basketball court upgrade from Tautiaki, and the basketball is our fastest growing sport in New Zealand, and I think that's something the community has been asking for, and we're having to pivot to find innovative ways of delivering basketball courts because we haven't got enough in Whakatane. So I'm in support of that, but I'm in support of council not necessarily funding it straight off. Let's explore other options.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just say, I used to have a conflict of interest because my son played basketball, but he no longer does, so I've got no skin in this one. So can we have a show of hands on that one again? Basketball court by Mātātua Reserve. Wharf area, soft play area next to Mātātua Reserve at 150,000. Wharf area, relevant decking to support commercial annex at 310,000. Wharf area, way station at Sports Fishing Club at 140,000. Wharf area, bollards to restrict vehicle access at 3,000.
Yeah.
Sorry? You supported that? Yep.
No, against it, sorry. No, for it.
For
sorry.
it, yep. Yep.
Is there a third option?
I was going to say it's been a long day for us all, but it's only 12 o'clock. Need food, yeah. Okay. The last one is Wharf refurbished Key Street path at 100,000. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That concludes that.
Can I have one more comment, sorry?
Yes.
Mr Chair. Just the top one, additional access way. I was just checking, is that about accessibility for old people, mobility scooters, that sort of thing?
So, through you, Your Worship. So this is just, we've already included that in the
you've done it.
baseline design. But this is just further enhancements for making it easier for additional access ways. So we have included that already.
Okay,
as well.
thanks.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. That was, Councillor Hammond.
Can I make a comment about the Plunket building? So I don't know if we've had quite the opportunity to express our own views on
Yep,
that, but
please.
I really like Plunket building and I would like to see it there, but given the context, I think I'm supportive of demolishing it, unfortunately. But I just want to acknowledge the community feedback on that and whether we could, as there has been a suggestion, just to do a low-cost reference to it in a on the wall or a facade, or just acknowledge our history.
Plaque.
Yeah, a plaque, or something quite visible that activates that space, but also acknowledges the history of that building going forward.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, there was an idea that a mural or something could be done on the wall around that area. So there is some options for us to do something there.
Councillor Emmett and then Councillor Boyce.
Yeah, one more comment about the basketball court. Now, I think the other day when we asked the question, they said you'll lose 4 car parks. I did a bit of a walkthrough and I couldn't see how you could get even a half-size court on 4 car parks unless you're talking 4x4, which is going to be 8. When they have tangi, hui, fishing club events, every space down there is already taken. So I think if you spray painted its size, it might just give a better idea of how much we might be losing. I'm not opposed to it, but I was just surprised when we said you're only going to lose 4 car parks.
Thank you. Councillor Boynton?
I was just going to, actually, Councillor Hamill had mentioned what I was going to say too around possibly having a way of acknowledging the Plunket building, either through a mural or something like that, but also to just supporting the basketball court. Also myself, I've been involved in funding applications for sports courts and that before, and the amount of funders in terms of the monthly turnover from different outlets that support sporting things, and we have the ability to get support from other organisations that will help that application. So I see that as a sort of hopefully an easy win to be able to achieve, while giving some return to the community visually, but also for the rangatahi as well. I did note that some of the feedback said that they'd be worried about the rangatahi making noises while they're playing basketball, and if that meant that they'll be trying to do that late at night. But I think it was mentioned before, there is not much for our rangatahi, and even the new members of our youth council have mentioned that time and time again, that there aren't things for them to do around this town. So I think it's a good win. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morgan Ranui.
When we're talking about getting rid of the Plunket building, are we demolishing it or just, is there another option of putting it up for sale and for removal?
No, it's concrete.
So through you, Your Worship, yeah, so it would be demolishing. I think when you remove the other buildings that are adjoining Plunket, those walls then remain quite structurally unsound. So the money that we put forward for this was to really shore up those those walls, once you remove the other buildings around there. So there isn't really many other options. As I said, we haven't really costed an option to keep the facade and move it, but there will definitely be quite a significant cost around that. But it would be demolishing.
Also, has it got concrete footings? I think it has, because that era of building usually has concrete footings, which means you can't move them.
Yeah.
Councillor Whittaker?
The option about bollards to restrict vehicle access, does that mean access right along the waterfront there?
Yes, so through you, Your Worships. Yeah, so that would be bollards at either side of the commercial wharf for the access. So at the Quay Street entrance and then at the other entrance after where the Sports Fishing Club will go in the decking. So there's two key areas of entrance, and keys would be provided for those people that require access down to the commercial wharf, like, the Iceman or berth holders, but not for the general public.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, because at the moment, some people do drive right past Long Gibbos there, and I think it would be good to have bollards there. But at 3,000, just bore a few holes in the concrete and drop some posts in there, put a chain across. Surely we could do it cheaper than 3,000. Thank you.
So, thanks, councillors. I'll move to the actual substantive resolution, which is that council directs staff to seek outside funding for those enhancements that we have indicated some priority for. That wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't in the original list. Councillor Whittaker indicated he wanted to move that seeking outside funding. Are you happy with the wording of that? Who seconded it? Carolyn, are you happy with that?
Could you please read out the wording of the revised resolution?
Yeah, it's a separate one. That the council directs staff to seek outside funding opportunities for enhancements to the project as indicated through through our prioritisation process.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Cool, thank you. We've had the debate on it, so those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Resolution now 7, that the council notes savings approximately 2.1 million from allocated LTP budget, and in the event council has additional preferences requiring allocation of further funding, a paper will be brought to council for a decision. Any debate on that? Councillor Emmink?
I'm not going to be agreeing with that one. I just think the whole 2.1 should go to pay off our interest deficit.
Yep. I think Councillor Dennis, then Councillor Hamill.
I'd actually agree with that, either deficit or give some relief to the ratepayers this year. I mean, at 9.4, we've saved some off the deficit, so either or. I reckon we need to do something like that, not just hang on to it. Thank you.
Councillor Hamill.
So just to clarify, we're just noting it, but I'm supportive of Councillor Mink's suggestion that we bring that savings forward in whatever capacity. So do we need to have another brought up at a future meeting where we finalise exactly what we're going to do with that 2.1?
So I would say that the actual way that's allocated will come up at a future meeting. Actually, I'll invite the Chief Executive to comment.
I'm just sensing a slight process issue. If there are 3 items that we are looking for co-funding for, and the balance of the funding is to come from that 2.1, and it goes, then I've got a bit of a problem because I don't have the co-funding. If the immediate decision was actually let's bank the $2.1 million and you did that now, then we couldn't do the co-funding bit for the other 3 options. I think it starts to get complicated if we try and guess what the co-funding is. So then it defaults back to that other option, which is actually do you just put that on hold and wait and use those savings in the next financial year unless we're able to do something very quickly and we can get ahead of the annual plan paper, which is coming through on the 24th of June. Yeah, so I just, there's a bit of a process issue there for me, is because I'll lose the funding.
So, and that was going to be my response as well, is that how I see this working is that if staff go off and investigate funding opportunities, if there's a requirement for co-funding, this gives them the ability to at least come back to council to ask if we want to meet that. It doesn't preempt any decision. It's just a paper would come to council saying, hey, look, Sports Bay of Plenty says they're prepared to put up this much for a basketball court. Are we prepared to fund the other bit? That's all. So it doesn't bind us to anything. It just allows staff to come forward with proposals. So those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's 3. You want those noted? Thank you. That's carried. And the final one is that the council directs staff to provide regular updates on program delivery through Projects and Services Committee until completion of the program. Is there any debate on that? Those in favour say aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's been a bit of a process, but we got there. Mea culpa. But thanks, that's a lot of hard work. It's great what you've put forward. Thank you to all those online as well. Really appreciate the work that you've put into this and to bring this to us for our decision making. Kia ora. Yeah, it's almost 12:30. We've got one more item, which is the solar panel tranche, and then we've got the public excluded section. I'm thinking we should probably break for lunch at this stage.
This one's quick. It might be easier to do this one.
Okay.
And then do resolution to exclude and have a quick break.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then 10 minutes because there's another meeting.
All right. This one. Oh, yeah. Sorry, yeah. No, it's only estimated 10 minutes for the solar tranche. So let's do that, and then move into public excluded. Yeah. Thank you. So, Grethnell, welcome.
Thank you.
And Nicola, welcome to the table.
Thank you.
So this is page 415, councillors. If you'd like to just introduce the paper and then
Thank you.
we'll see what questions we have.
Tēnā koutou, councillors. Firstly, I would like to introduce you to Gretel Ibanez. Got that correct, thank you. She's been with council for 2 months as a strategic policy analyst. She's part of Lou Hunt's climate change and resilience team, and originally she's an ecologist from Chile, so come to Whakatane. She replaces Georgia Mashevsky-Gray, excuse me. We also have Lou Hunt online to answer any more background questions. I'll just give a quick summary of what we're seeking today. We're seeking your in-principle approval to progress Tranche 2 of our solar panel project, applying for a 10-year loan to fund 5 of the 7 sites of the tranche. The initiative builds on the success of Tranche 1, which has already exceeded our financial targets by generating over $31,000 in savings in just 6 months. Tranche 2 proposes 7 facilities for solar installation. This includes 5 core sites funded by a 10-year, 3.5% interest loan through Trust Horizon, and 2 memorial halls supported by a central government grant. Strategically, this project is about resilience and leadership. Financially, this project is cost-saving for our ratepayers. Our electricity savings are conservatively modelled to exceed all loan repayments and interest from day one. Over the 10-year loan term, once the debt is cleared, the council will realise over $3 million in direct savings from the 5 core loan sites. By approving the loan, we will secure a greener, more resilient and more cost-effective future for our district. Thank you. So I'll pass over to Gretel for a little bit more information, and then we'll open it for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Tēnā koutou katoa. So the key points for this paper are Tranche 2 involves installing solar systems at 7 facilities in total, with 5 sites included in the 10-year loan of $440,000 from Trust Horizon, fixed at 3.5 for the first 5 years. The 5 sites are Riverside Holiday Park, Whakatane Museum, Wharfside, Murupara Service Centre and Murupara Aquatic Centre. To provide you with further confidence in this proposal, we met this week with Carl Newby from Fitica, our external energy specialist who has monitored the Council's energy use for the last 10 years and authored the original 2022 feasibility study. Carl confirmed that Whakatane is leading the way in energy and resilience, a sentiment backed by the success of Tranche 1, which he noted exceeded financial modeling by more than $30,000 in savings between September 2025 and February 2026. By progressing with Tranche 2, the Council continues to demonstrate visible leadership in the district transition to low emissions, climate resilient future while ensuring the project provides significant cost savings for ratepayers. In conclusion, our recommendation is for Council to receive the business case report, approve the loan, and delegate authority to the CE to submit the loan application. I'm open to any questions with my manager, Lou Hunt, online. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillors, questions? Councillor Whittaker, you...
Yes, thank you. I'm just curious about the Wharfside site and the amount of cost, which is $105 million, and I presume a big chunk of that is for the battery. It's going to store excess power. Otherwise, you know, well, it'd be that amount of money because it's only a 10.8 kilowatt unit.
Sorry, councillor, where is that figure come from? Which page?
428. Oh, sorry. No, might be back a bit. Hold on, I've gone on. It's, yeah, it is 428. It's got $108,500. That's the cost, I guess, of the installation. And whether or not we have a site somewhere else we could use. I understand it may be because you're holding events and you want to have that battery storage, but would it be actually more financially acceptable to put that power into the grid and then, I mean, occasionally you get the odd power cut in the Hawkey, but not a lot.
You're on mute, Lou.
I can't unmute you.
You're on mute. Thank you.
Sorry, that cost is the Wharfside cost, and it has a lower return on investment than the other sites. It was around community resilience. You're right, it does have solar panels alongside battery, and it was included in option 1, but it is the lower return on investment that you could go to option 2 to cut that one. The downside of doing that is we probably wouldn't come back and do this at another stage. It would still be our next preferred location for solar, and we don't really envisage coming back with a tranche 3 as we perhaps had initially a few years ago when they when the case study was done across all investment possibilities for solar.
Thank you.
Councillor Dennis?
Yeah, thank you. My query is the same with the Wharfside. It has a return of investment of minus 19%, so to me that's much, make a loss. And I see it only has one less than $2,000 a year in electricity, so, but it's going to cost 108 odd thousand to put it in. Wouldn't we be better putting that money into somewhere else? I mean, it's the second highest cost of installation for the lowest cost of someone that uses it. And when you talk about resilience, I don't know in a tsunami or in a weather event like we've had why anyone would want to sit in the wharf shed next to the harbour. So, but don't we have a building that would be of better value or for the investment and get a better return on it? Yeah.
So the business case is not as good for Wharfside as the others, which is why it's excluded in option 2. So we wouldn't recommend making that investment on another building because this one has was preferred, and I can dig back through that with Carl and find some better reasoning and come back to you on if we didn't do Wharfside, what you would do it on instead. But the other resilience investments that we're looking at, yeah, there's a separate project looking at resilience funding through ECA, but this one doesn't qualify for that, as we're not using it as a welfare centre for an emergency ops centre.
You almost wonder it'd be better to do something up on the hill where the evacuation would take place in tsunami, or yeah, I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Grethel, did you want to add something?
Yes. So in page 425, in the mitigation part for Wharfside, you can see that we're adding batteries because the use of Wharfside is in the evening. So we're increasing the use of generated solar power from 27 to 65%. Also, Wharfside delivers 206% lifetime return on investment with more than $100,000 in net savings. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, the decision before us is to either do all 5, to do 4 of them, or to do none of them. So it's in our hands as to whether we want to include that Wharfside or not. And if there's no other questions, I'll move to the resolution, which is to receive the report to approve in principle the submission of a trust loan application to fund the council share of the Tranche 2 solar installations. That whoever moves that could change that to option 2 instead, so that leaves out the Wharfside, and delegates to the Chief Executive to finalise and submit the Trust Horizon loan application. So I'm going to seek someone to move those resolutions. Councillor James, Eddie, do you want to move option 1 or option 2? And bearing in mind that it can always be amended in the process as well.
No, I'm happy to stick with option 1 because I think Wharfside, the business is going to get greater over there and so we'll start paying.
Thank you. And did you indicate, so Councillor Emmink seconds. So the first is to receive the report. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. The second is to approve in principle the submission of a loan application to fund the council share of the Tranche 2 solar installations per option 1. So that's all 5 of them.
Debate first?
Yep. So now's the time for debate. Councillor Dennis.
Although I have raised questions about how well Wharfside would repay itself as a package, and we've seen how brilliant the solar panels are worked on the council buildings and the rest of it we've got, I will vote yes for this option 1 because as a package we're going to get an incredible return on it and it's going to be viable for the community, so I'll be voting yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other debate, contribution? Councillor Boynton?
Yes, just to speak to supporting that, I think it's highlighted quite clearly the no cost to ratepayers. So I think it's a winner. Also, to the return on investment in terms of savings
you know, it helps us and it helps our community. So, yes, totally support this.
Thank you. Councillor Hamill?
I just generally agree that this is a win-win. We want to get some benefits for our environment, but also save money. There is a little bit of ambiguity about the Wharfside in the short term, but perhaps I think in the long term it will be a prudent decision to go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for that. That brings us to the end of the, and thank you for the report. That brings us to the end of the public agenda. Sorry, my apologies. Yep, resolution number 3 as well, which is to delegate authority to the Chief Executive to finalise and submit the Trust Horizon loan application. Any debate on that? Thank you. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Councillors, despite the strong desire for a break, this room is booked from 1 o'clock. We have one item left, which is half an hour estimated time. We're statutorily required to break for 10 minutes now, but by resolution we could rescind that and keep going for another half hour and knock the last item off. So just checking for agreement on that. Okay. So we'll take a toilet break, but just so I'll need a mover and a seconder. Councillor James having to move that? Yeah. Seconded by Councillor Hamill. Thank you. Any debate? Those in favour say aye. Oh, 2. My apologies, 2. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we'll take a quick toilet break and then we'll get back in. Like just a couple of minutes toilet break just to...
Upstairs we've got.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to ask for a mover and seconder to move into public excluded. Before I do that, I just want to advise the meeting that the plain English reasons for passing the resolution noted within the agenda has been corrected, and the plain English reason for passing this resolution is now, it is necessary to exclude the public to protect individuals and legal advice contained that should remain confidential and between council and its legal advisors, and that this report includes legal advice and is accordingly bound by legal professional privilege. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Hamill, Councillor Morgan Ranui seconds. Those in favour say aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you for that. So, right, so we're just setting up the public excluded.